To call the meeting to order, if I may.
Do you want me to give opening remarks?
If you would, please.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. This meeting is the Cpdc meeting of Monday, August 16th. From staff, there's me, Julie Mercier, Community Development Director. I'm here over Zoom, as you can all tell. And then there's Andrew McNichol, Staff Planner, who's in person. And we have Ryan Percival here with us tonight for a town project, and he's over Zoom as well. From the Cpdc, we have our new chair, Pamela Adrian. We have John Weston, Tony Diarezzo in person, and then over Zoom there's Heather. For the Zoom audience, typically the way these things are run is that the development team will give a presentation to the Cpdc, and then the Cpdc and the development team will be able to have a dialogue, and then the Cpdc chair will open the meeting up to public comment. If you're on Zoom and you want to make a comment, you can either raise your hand like this, because I can see everybody on my screen, or you can use the raise hand feature in Zoom. And Andrew and I will alert Pam that you want to speak if we don't think she can see you. And then when you are acknowledged by Pam, then please state your name and address for the record and for our minutes. That would be helpful. We do ask that the Zoom audience remain muted at all times unless you are speaking. And then I did want to turn it over to Andrew to talk about some of the in-person, in the live audience protocols that we have. Thank you very much.
If anybody does come live, we have nobody yet, but we ask that you just sign in the corner of the room there, and then same process that when public comment is open, we just ask that you raise your hand, be acknowledged by the chair, and come up to the front here where there's a marker for you that you can speak from, and that's where the camera will capture you from. I think that's it on my end, Julie.
Set. Do we have anybody here from Metro Credit Union? This is a sign permit application from...
Yes,
Yes.
this is Brandon Curry. I'm just trying to flip my camera around here. Apologize for that.
Hello?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, you just disappeared.
Oh, I'm trying to get my camera to work here. I apologize. Can I just start by sharing the drawings with you guys? Would that be better?
Yes, let me make you a co-host, and then you should be able to screen share.
Thank you.
Should be good to go.
Okay, can you guys all see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet.
There you
There
go.
you go.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, I'm gonna keep my video off. My Wi-Fi is a little shaky right now. I think that's why I was having some issues with video. But my name is Brandon Currier from Bylaw Signs here, representing Metro Credit Union. As you guys are aware, this location was a previous bank. It was been purchased by Metro Credit Union, and now we are rebranding. It's located at 470 Main Street. So for here, item A, we just have a nice set of halo lit channel letters, logo, and pill that says Credit Union. This is well within the square footage. We're only asking for one of these. Moving down to item B here, there's an existing sign from TD Bank that sticks out. And we are doing a similar sign. This is going to be a two-sided bleedless cabinet with push-through copy. The edges of that will be lit, and the vinyl copy on the front will be opaque, so it will not shine outwards. I want to make a note here. The drawing, we sent a revised drawing because the blade side did hang a little bit below the bottom of that facade. That was corrected on the drawing. And since that had been corrected, we had our engineering team take a look at this to get ready for our shop drawings and such. And they wanted to change the depth from 3 inches to 6 inches for better structural rigidity to be mounting into this, because we had done a field survey after we submitted this document. So we're just here seeking approval for these two signs for this location. Thank you.
Okay, questions from the board?
Andrew, was the shared drive missing some of these documents?
I do not believe so.
Yeah, I only saw
Yep.
the second page of this. I didn't have
Yeah.
this one that's up on the screen now.
I apologize if that is the case.
Now, while Andrew looks at that, let's start with a simple question. Can you tell us how the halo signage will work?
I'm sorry, can you be more specific about your question? What do you mean how it will work? As in terms of how the light will be projected?
Yes.
The light will be projected from the back side of the sign onto the facade.
Okay. So it will not bleed through any translucent lettering on the tops, bottom sides. It's only,
There will be opaque vinyl on the faces. No light will bleed through the front. Everything you'll see will be projected out of the rear of the sign onto the facade.
so the sides of the signs are also opaque, is what you're telling me.
Correct.
Okay. And for the blade sign,
Yes.
how is that going to work?
So the same thing. So the acrylic is pushed through, and it'll push, and the lighting will come out of the side of that acrylic onto that background there.
I don't.
Yeah, I
That's
don't
not the
understand.
blade.
Yeah, can you explain that a little bit more?
Yep. So you can see here the Plex. So that would be the acrylic material. So in the center here, so that'll be 6 inches deep. So through that, there'll be acrylic that is pushed through. So we'll route out the M here, the M. So that'll be pushed through with acrylic. And then the blue and the yellow will be opaque, and the lighting will come from the backside of that acrylic. So in terms like how the I want to go back up to item A for a second. So how Metro, the word Metro is onto the facade. The logo here will be onto the blade, obviously since there's no sort of facade for that to mount to.
Yeah, that might be a problem. That sounds like the light is actually coming from inside the sign.
It's coming from the edge of the of that pushed through acrylic. So this the white that you see here, that is going to be opaque vinyl. The orange is going to be opaque vinyl, and so is the blue. So you will see no light coming through the face. It'll all be from the edges, which will cast that halo lit out of the blade sign.
Well, no, the light will be coming off the top of the M. Correct?
Yes, it is edge lit.
Right. So you're not really getting a halo effect. You're getting a halo effect, but you're not doing halo lighting. You're supposed to be bouncing the light off the building or behind it. If you had a solid behind the M, that would make it halo light.
Okay.
I had a similar question that may be related, and it may be solved by making it true halo lighting. I thought I heard you say that the edges of the blade sign would be lit.
Nope. That is incorrect. The edge of the acrylic that pushes through the cabinet would be lit. So that would just be the edge of the M here would be lit onto the background,
All right.
which is blue in the yellow area.
That's hard to imagine. Do you have another example of how this appears?
I
mean, this is
don't have
a
an example
markup.
here. Just the simulated night view. I mean, I can see how that would be kind of tough to understand. I'm sorry, I do not have another image with me to provide.
Okay, so that's the simulated night view, which implies that the light is actually coming out the edges of the sign and not being reflected off of the background.
It should be just coming out of the M. I'm not sure. It looks like there was a mistake around the top edge with the light here. It should just be coming off the outsides of the M because the white is opaque over the face.
Okay, but still, it's not a halo lit. You're lighting it internally with the edging being translucent to let the light shine through. You're not reflecting it off of the background, which is what we want with a halo sign.
Okay, so I apologize. So you would rather have this M be a channel letter with more dimension, so it would be probably a 3-inch channel letter with light shining back at a blue and orange background.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, is that something that we could do, like if for the like an administrative approval, we put that into the motion to approve, and then we provide the updated drawings for the approval?
Yes, I think we can.
That would be fantastic.
All right, but the same rules should apply to the sign on the front of the building as well.
That is correct.
That's the other thing I was noticing, the front of the building, it looks like you've got, explain how that logo works with the halo lighting, because you've got the M layered on, what part is actually reflected off the back of the building?
So that would be the same thing. The M would have to be a fabricated letter as well onto the blue and the orange background.
So both of those would be changed from what you have in the sheet.
That is correct.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that the logo on that image, looking at the simulated night view,
Mhm.
I question whether that the blue and the orange are, they won't show up, but I'm questioning how the light is getting there. So you'd almost have to have 2 levels of channel lettering. So
There would be no light coming from behind the blue. It would be the halo illumination would be coming from the white onto the blue and onto the orange
okay,
with the revised print.
all right. So where you have a light around the square for the logo, that light would disappear in the new drawing is what you're telling us.
Correct.
And is there text under that block under the Metro or Met?
Metro, it just says credit union.
Okay, so yes, it's text under the Met.
So I'm sorry, I can't see that far from where I'm sitting. There's no, in the nighttime view, right, you're not going to be able to read credit union, right?
No.
That is correct, because that is the same thing. That is the push through
Yeah.
acrylic, so that would have to be changed to the channels as well. If they decided to have that lit. So that would have to be halo lit as well.
And do you plan for any signage to be on the backside of the bank, the credit union?
This is the only signage that they're proposing.
Okay. Okay, so.
All right, and how tall and wide is the full sign? I guess,
3 feet high total and 11 foot 4.5 inches wide for the entire width.
33 plus another. So that
34.13 square feet, if that's what you're looking for overall.
Yeah, your application had it listed, I want to say at 32.
It did, and I noticed that as well. It is reflected correctly on the certificate.
Okay,
So I just want to make sure I understand, going back to the part of the sign that says credit union, at nighttime, the piece that would be halo lit is the rectangle around credit union,
That is correct.
but not the lettering itself.
Correct.
All right.
Nothing will be face lit here at all. It'll all be halo lit. And that's what the push through copy that we had in here, that's what that simulates. It's what we run into when you have letters that are small, like these 6-inch letters. I mean, it's almost near impossible to have that thin of a stroke in a solid channel letter. So that's why we do the push through acrylic, because it would be the same thing as a dimensional channel letter. It would be coming through the metal by about an inch, and then you'd have the opaque face, and then the illumination would be coming out from behind the opaque face. So it's a solution to not having physical letters, because a letter that small is pretty much near to impossible. So that's why we went that route, and then we kept everything similar throughout the entire package. But it still simulates a halo illumination. I know that the term edge is it, but it throws the same light.
I'm no expert, but I question that statement. That a direct light coming off of the the edges is different than reflected light being bounced off the back of the facade.
The edge lighting is actually less intrusive than the halo illumination.
But I think that's a moot point,
Yeah.
right? Because there won't be any edge lighting on this. It'll all be true halo lit, correct?
Okay.
Okay, so.
Is there a time of day that the lights will be off?
Is there a requirement on when you guys require the illumination to be turned on and off? I didn't see anything in the code.
Hours.
No, I think downtown there isn't. Right?
I want to say yes.
Well, it would, they're not changing the original site plan, right? So it's whatever was approved for the original site plan. But I thought in downtown, you could leave the lights on, signage lights on.
And there is an ATM on here that's 24 hours a day at this location.
Is that what's shown on the bottom left side? Is that
Correct.
ATM? Okay. And that will be illuminated too, correct?
I cannot speak to that. That is not in our scope of work.
Okay. I don't think we've ever handled one that needs to come back to us, have we? Tom? Have we ever had one of these signage issues that has to come back to us?
Well, I don't think this needs to come back. We
Okay,
could,
so we just
we could,
suggest,
we could, as a condition, have it be that all the lighting is done, true halo lit, and that it gets reviewed by town staff
okay,
before final approval.
okay, so.
We're all done looking at the images. I can screen share the decision.
Okay, that'd be
All
great.
right.
Would you like me to stop sharing my screen?
Yes, if you don't mind.
Okay.
We just. Just go to the, do you want to take it from the top?
Please.
Okay. Let's look at this before now.
In the materials submitted, do we have listed, right, there's a revised sheet that has a 6-inch depth, thickness for the plate sign? Did you receive
We didn't
that?
No,
You have not received
we have
that?
not received that.
All right.
I can add it below in the condition of the revised documentation.
Yeah.
When we get there. Should I keep scrolling?
Please.
Okay, these are the findings. The square footages aren't changing, right? These are all correct. Correct.
Would you mind blowing that up a little bit more? My eyes
Sure.
aren't what they used to be. Thank you. That's much better, thank you.
So let me know when I can keep scrolling. I'm going to change that 3, which is right here, right? Actually.
I think,
Square.
This one's 6.
I think the blade sign will be 6 inches deep.
Is that the only one, or is the other one 6 too?
well, the letters, how deep are the letters, the channel letters?
Right.
Brandon, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I was muted. The channel letters, I'm looking to see, they're 3-inch deep fabricated channel letters.
On both sides?
That would be the wall sign, that section that we're in right now. So for the letters and the logo.
3-inch or not 6-inch?
Right, so where you still are,
Channel letters,
Okay.
the letters on that say
Right.
Metro. Right.
Okay.
So the blade sign where it says it'll be 3, that should be 6 inches deep,
Okay, there, that's.
right there.
all right, in the first bullet, we're gonna remove the fact that the logo and pill shall be constructed with colored acrylic material with opaque vinyl. Because those were the push-throughs. So
That's fine.
it can be vinyl, it can be, it will be opaque because there'll be no light shining through.
Okay.
But we wanna make sure that the push-through is actually halo lighting.
Okay.
Or the push-through lettering.
Reword this or just delete this, Tony?
I think reword that, the logo shall be constructed with a channel letter quote M.
Yeah.
And halo lighting behind the M.
Right.
I think that
True
describes it.
halo, if you wish. Yep. Good. Illuminated through halo, but to LED.
Do you want me to add the word true?
Yes.
And then 5, bullet number 4.
Mm-hmm.
That's still the same thing, it's constructed with colored acrylic material, shall be illuminated. So we want to put somewhere that it's a channel logo.
I think you used the same sentence that you just wrote up under number 4. Yeah. And put that, copy and paste that into the
Number 4, bullet.
the third bullet.
Oh, third bullet?
Is that it?
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Should I take this one? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Take this out?
Yeah.
Sorry, you guys are a little bit muffled for me. I don't know if it's the masks or an extremely loud box fan. So I started to add a condition about this down here. And we can add the depth of the signs here as well. I think that's a good idea. Did I understand this correctly?
Yep. Or the way that I understood it.
That's the way I
Yeah.
perceive it as well.
And then
Now we need something that indicates when the lights are on and when they're off.
Do we need to have anything there that, so that they shall be revised, and do we need to have anything there that they'll be reviewed by planning department staff? Or is that just implied? Oh, it's already down there.
Right.
Oh, wait, no, not yet.
Yeah, so we always have to sign off before they get their sign permit and building permit. So it's implied, but we can add stronger language if you prefer.
That's fine. If it's implied, that's fine. And Pam, to your point of when they're on and off, if this is business B zoning district, I don't think we have
It's the
requirements
main
on
Yep.
when it's, I don't think we have bounds on when they can display it, when it can be on.
Correct.
Okay. So be it. Okay. Brandon, you're okay with all of that?
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
Good.
Thank you for hearing me out and working with us through this.
No problem. Do we need a vote? Do we have a quorum?
We have a quorum,
Okay.
but you need a motion.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve this signage for Metro Credit Union?
Sure, I'll move to approve the certificate of appropriateness for the sign application at 470 Main Street, Metro Credit Union.
Second.
All in favor? Excellent. Good. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody. I do have one quick question while I have you all here. So our lead time is about 8 to 10 weeks on this build. After everything's all set and approved. The client's looking to open up sooner than that. Is a banner or anything similar appropriate to put up for our clients so they can open with some sort of identification?
We have a lot of information about temporary signage in our sign bylaw, which is section of the zoning bylaw. Temporary signage does require a sign permit. So you need to fill out an application. You can bring it into town hall, we can help you.
All right, fantastic. Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thanks for asking. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a great evening, everybody.
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next item of business is a sign permit application for 143 Washington Street, Avery Auto Care. Do we have a member of the participating group present? Doesn't sound like it.
We did earlier in the night, Markarian sign.
Chris, I believe you're just on mute. There you go.
There you go. I'm unmuted here. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Good evening, everybody. I'm here to represent Avery Auto. It's for thankfully a non-illuminated wall sign at the 133 location. I do not have drawings to show you because I did not make it back to the shop this afternoon. Andrew, I believe, should have everything.
I can screen share them.
Thank you, Julie.
No problem. It's much easier for me with the double monitor here at home. Can you all see the
Yep.
document?
Go ahead, please.
Okay, so what you see there is a what's called a fan-faced background, which is a 3-foot by 10-foot panel. It's an aluminum panel, which will have blue vinyl graphics for the Stripe and Auto Care copy, and then a 1/2-inch raised red panel with the Avery copy. The 1/2-inch thick Avery will be matched by that pill shape, if you will, down below with white vinyl graphics on that blue pill, carrying the same surface as the Avery and the blue pill below. It's replacing an existing old banner that's been on that building for quite some time, probably 4 or 5 years. And they're just looking to clean up their facility, and this is what they're proposed to put on the building.
Okay, so you're proposing no light, this is just for daytime purposes, correct?
That is correct. I think they carry maybe I'm not sure their hours, maybe 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and they do not face the main road, as you know. It's on that side exposure next to the glass business, and I don't even think illumination would benefit them. And if there is illumination, it wouldn't be by us, it would be a electrical contractor that would supply that. Nothing on the sign is illuminated. They'd have to gooseneck it if they ever did illuminate it.
Okay, and are you requesting a blade as well?
No, just this one sign. That drawing is just a side profile. If you zoom in,
Sure.
the beige is simulating the concrete block wall and showing the fasteners and the raised panel of the Avery and the raised panel of the subcopy below.
I have no
Questions,
additional questions.
questions or comments from the board?
Not a single question.
No, this looks good to me.
Can I make a motion?
Yes, I just have one
Go right
question.
ahead.
I just have one question. Does it have a black
Go
edge?
ahead.
Does it have a black edge all the way around?
It does, and the reason for that is
So it
I am a
stands out.
stickler for exposed fasteners. So anything holding the face to the frame gets covered by this black U-molding. It
Excellent.
stands off the face of the sign about 1/4 inch, and it's about 1.25 inches wide.
Okay, that helps.
And I
Thank you.
suppose
I have a
before,
little,
oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry,
No,
I have a
you,
pet peeve of seeing fasteners to the face of a sign.
Mm.
I don't know, it's always been that way, and I think it's a lot neater look to have the frame.
This is, okay. Your question, Heather?
oh, I was gonna say, I suppose before I make a motion, we should probably at least look at the decision, the draft decision. Right?
It's a thought.
Yeah.
Should I blow it up?
Please,
Sure.
thank you.
No worries. I'm right there with you.
The only thing I can add, and it hasn't come up as a question, but the placement of the sign will be one course of block above the garage door opening. It will not be sitting down at the edge of the garage door opening. It's for 2 reasons. So it aesthetically looks correct on the wall, and if something doesn't make it in the door, it doesn't damage the sign.
That's thinking. That sounds like a man with some experience there.
Well, I'd like to go back and replace the sign, but they don't usually like it when I ask them.
Heather, do we have a
Sorry,
motion?
Just let me know and I'll keep scrolling for you. It's just the typical findings.
Yeah.
Sure, I can move, and then if you want to have discussion. So I move to approve the certificate of appropriateness for the sign application for 143 Washington Street, Avery Auto Care.
Second,
All in favor? Heather?
Yes,
Excellent. Approved, thank you.
I thank you very much for your time.
No problem,
Thank you.
Enjoy.
thank you. Okay. Next item on our list is the site plan review for 160 Hopkins Street, Gazebo Circle Pump Station, in the town of Reading. I'm assuming you're here to talk about it, Mr. Ryan?
That's correct, fresh off of vacation, so I'll have to lean a little bit more on Weston Sampson tonight. Since our last meeting, we made quite a bit of changes to the plan. We've shifted the entryway coming off of Cedar Street to now reflect some of the comments that we received from the neighborhood meeting. as well as some of the comments we received from the previous meetings, to come off of Gazebo Circle. We have received word from the trustees that they're willing to gift that easement to us, which is great. We're preparing those warrant articles for a special town meeting, I believe, coming up in September. Additionally, because the driveway has changed, a little bit of the drainage has changed as well, and that'll be reflected on the plan, which Weston and Sampson can share. Also, I believe we received a very last minute late submission from town council with the opinion of restrictions or non-restrictions of on the lot, which I myself didn't have a chance to thoroughly go through. As of today, there were crews out there doing test pits to determine depth of groundwater, soil characteristics, things of that nature, to help us design the foundation and subsurface drainage, as well as a surveyor who actually did pin, I believe, 3 of the 4 corners out there for the new current location. I know it's a little late. We did want to share those for the neighborhood, but they were pinned out there. So for the neighbors that do live in that area, they can go out there and see the, I believe at least 3 of the stakes. The 4th stake had to be moved because they did a test pit in the area. And so to that, I will welcome either Ben Rollins or Cassandra to kind of take it over from Weston and Sampson. I think we're missing Bruce tonight, but that's okay. I think he's on vacation, so.
Ryan, quick question.
Yes.
What do the stakes pinned represent? The building or the foundation or the lot area?
That's a great question. I believe it's the footprint of the building, the far outside edges of the footprint of the building.
Okay, thank you.
So basically what an abutter would see or a resident would see, just sort of outlining that footprint.
Yep, that is correct, Ryan. So the stakes will indicate the corners of the building there, like Cassandra has zoomed in here. And we actually have, so our company went out, staked out the corners of the building today, did some trenching like Ryan touched on, and we also have some pictures we could share with the group if necessary of those stakes.
I think we'd like to see that.
Yeah, sure. Be happy to show. And which computer wants to cooperate.
So it is important just to point out
Sorry, I'm
that,
just opening them.
I just want to point out that the building did change a little bit in its sort of orientation slightly, but it is generally in that level area, still on the top, but with the driveway clearly coming off of Gazebo Circle now.
We also did shift it up and to the right a tiny bit, up and to the northeast a tiny bit to kind of try and hide it as best as we could.
So I can try to explain this first photo. Can you see the stakes from in the boardroom? Is it close
Yeah.
enough?
If
Should
you
I zoom in more?
indicate it, yes.
Yep,
No, that's
yep.
good.
Okay, so here's the photo. Let me just try to show you. So we're standing here. If that helps to orient you. So Hopkins Street is down here, and behind us is Gazebo Circle. Let's see, this is not a stake. This is another view from that same kind of angle, but a little bit further over. Here's another one kind of looking at the building square. So that would be, you know, looking right here. This one, Hopkins Street is more behind us now. This is that slope behind there. Where, you know, this is that flat area. And then back over here is where Cedar Street is. Is that helpful? If I can share further photos if you would like, or go back to any of the other views?
No, this,
Sandra, do you have Do you have anything that's a little further away to give a little bit more context?
Yeah, let me look. All right, so here's one. They were digging at the same time, so you can't, there's stakes over here. This is that building on the gazebo circle corner. I don't quite know its purpose, but right as the driveway curves up. This one, the stakes are over here. I don't know if we have one out at Hopkins Street. Let me see. Here's one from over. This is one of the posts, like wooden guardrail posts. So standing on gazebo circle, that's one of the stakes. Here's another one. See if, so you can see like it's on the far side of the site when you're standing at gazebo circle. Are those helpful, Ryan?
I find that helpful. And what are the dimensions of the building again? Now that it's being proposed?
Yeah, it's 16 feet by 26 feet. Is that, Ben, does that sound right to you?
I believe they're in the submitted packet if you want to show that.
Yeah, I do believe it's 16 by 26. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Thank you.
By 16, yeah.
Could you go back to the original drawing?
This one?
No, the one with the stakes in it, the photograph?
Oh, the photograph, sorry about
Yep,
that.
I need to see it from where the driveway will be coming into this spot so I can see how many trees you're taking out.
So it's it's probably actually this photo. So before, if you'll recall, you know, we had the driveway coming along here.
Right.
And now we have it coming from over here. So I would say this is probably the best photo. It's going to be coming right along here. So the driveway won't be taking out any trees.
Excellent.
There's a 30-inch tree here and a 24-inch here, and we have a lot of buffer space. So
Excellent.
we won't be taking out any trees in this area.
Sandra, we actually reduced the amount of trees, I think, on this rendition, correct, of what we're taking down? We're retaining the ones in the
That's
northwest corner.
correct. Yep, these will be retained. I think originally, I can't remember if any of these were going to be removed, but they no longer will be. These two will need to be, this 8-inch, 12-inch will need to be because of the water main. The location of those has not changed in this area. But yes, we've reduced.
And then one 12-inch tree to the left-hand side of that building.
Yes, just because this fence would encroach upon that tree too much. So yeah, we've reduced the number of trees to, it's only 3 trees that we are proposing to remove. I think before it was 6 or more. Yeah.
Nope, that's good.
And it's important also to note that we've sort of eliminated that concern of the runoff coming down Cedar and then coming down that driveway at a velocity. So now we have we don't have that issue to really deal with. We do have a drainage that we have to mitigate, but not at that velocity.
Any other questions from the board? Did Nick join us? No? Okay.
So I do recall, right, Nick had a couple of questions. I don't know if anyone has those captured. You know, I do recall that he was concerned about noise issues. And I think he brought up a lot of questions about the design of the building, but it seems to be I think that was, right, that hasn't changed at all. I guess my question on this, when I look at this, is does it, the configure, how do I put this? I would think that you would want the door aligned to the driveway so that you can get stuff in and out instead of perpendicular to the 12-foot driveway. But maybe that's not an issue. If you need to go get in there with, I don't know, anything.
Yeah, so I think the main reasoning for the location of that, if you look at this image, because of electrical equipment that's required and the clearances that'll be needed, and the proposed location of these pumps inside, we're proposing to have electrical kind of over here. So either this side or this side is the best location for the door. Over here wouldn't really leave enough space to kind of come in and turn with something. So
I guess
Sandra, can you
I was
can you
more
just-
thinking that, wouldn't it, I don't know how these operate, right? What sort of operational issues you have, but if the whole building were turned, I don't know, 10 degrees or 15 degrees, I'm gonna call it clockwise, on the site,
Like
then
that.
you'd have that face down towards the driveway, and that may make that door more functional, but I don't know how functional that door really needs to be besides getting people in and out of there.
Well, it's obviously wide enough to be able to get equipment in and out, so perhaps it needs to be closer to that driveway.
Well, it's not a drive-through door.
No, but if you've got a
that's correct.
heavy piece of electrical equipment that's 4 feet wide, why would you bring it all the way around the building in order to get it into those doors?
Well, you're not
That's what
bringing it
I'm
all the
saying.
way around, that's the driveway.
So the door
there.
is right here.
Yeah.
And that's the
So you
driveway.
would theoretically, you pull up here or you pull up here. There's enough space within the gate to get in, and then you would unload. I mean, they're going to be putting in equipment, when they build it, and then these pieces of equipment have a long lifespan, so you wouldn't need to be, the pump, and then, like some electrical paneling, but that lasts decades, so it's really a very rare occurrence where otherwise it is really just people going in and out.
And it looks to me like the driveway is designed so that you could bring a vehicle in, park it, easily turn around and get out of there without too much trouble. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Correct.
Yes, that's the intention.
Yeah, it provides us with a 3-point turn, so we can pull in and then back up and then pull out. And I would say that gives us enough room to get in and out operationally. We've obviously looked at that because we don't want to hamstring ourselves with something doesn't operate well for our rock crews, but I think that's plenty of room for us.
And then on this version where you're showing us the top view, could you point out where, I guess, the louvers, the vents are? Because I'm guessing that's where sound would escape from, but maybe I'm also not a sound engineer or anything. I don't know if that's the case, but can you tell us a little bit more about what we can expect by way of sound, especially say at nighttime during quiet hours when clearly the pump station will probably still be going because people need water, right?
Mm-hmm. So in terms of location, there will be an HVAC unit here, kind of next to the door. That is this unit. And then next to it will be that small louver that's about, 1 foot square here. And then the other louver will be over here, also about 1 foot square. Those 2 louvers are kind of additional auxiliary, if there was an issue with the HVAC unit, they provide for airflow, but normally it's this HVAC unit. So, this is the farthest away from residents over in this area and, you know, quite far from the first building here, but it really would not be producing any noise that you would be able to hear. Yeah.
So let me give you an example, like on a nice night like tonight where it's easy to have windows open and it's finally nice and quiet around my house where I'm sitting here because nobody has their air conditioning on. Would somebody be sitting out on their porch and hearing an HVAC unit?
My understanding is no. I think it's, you know, quieter probably than some of the units that you do here. You know, if your neighbor has a window unit and then you're walking by it or you're across the street, I believe it would be quieter than that.
Yeah, it's a very quiet hum, if anything. I think you guys are right. I think Bruce may have answered similar questions last time as well.
Yeah, it's important too that just by placing it on that right-hand side, the projection of any noise that would be coming out of its fan blades and be directed away from any residents if there was any sound.
Yeah.
But I would say it's probably no different than those heat exchanger units that you see that are currently up on people's homes.
I will also say, you know, this size may seem like it's large. It's not. Most of this is kind of boxed in. It's not like it's this big exhaust or anything. It is kind of a flat face. So if that helps to explain it a bit, it's not the same as like a louver or like what you'd see on the exterior of a window AC unit.
I don't have any other questions.
No, nor do I.
My only other question, and I know we probably addressed this before, there doesn't seem to be any generator for this. That is correct. Am I
That's
correct in that statement? Okay.
We will, just to be 100% clear, there will be no permanent generator on this site. What we will have will be an auxiliary plug that's on the exterior of the building or on the interior, depending on how they designed it. So if we do have a emergency situation where we really do have to provide fire flows from this pump station, we can set up a pull-behind generator for that short-term, you know, less than 48 hours worth of use.
Okay,
Provide that fire boosting ability.
thank you.
Which would probably be located right in that driveway that's farthest from anyone's houses too, so that's a good configuration.
It's very good.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important to note too that if we're in that situation or scenario, we're really fighting a fire probably in the larger units. You know, in the condo area. So
Yeah, quiet.
I don't think that'd be an issue at that point.
Yeah, good point. So Ryan, can you lay out what the process is from here on, what you need to go through?
Sure, providing we obtain approval, from this point, we'll probably do a few more mechanical drawings, finish up some of that, some of the SCADA, which is, the controls and allow us to the ability to see what's going on in the station through a computer system. And then also after that, they'll finish up doing the specs and the drawings and get them ready for going out to bid, and we'll set a bid schedule and after the bid schedule, depending on when we open and what the weather is looking like, it'll either be early spring, or if we have a mild winter, we might even be able to get started sometime in the winter. But I don't, depending if we get this out right away, I don't see us starting in the fall. Is that correct, Ben?
Yeah, that's correct, Ryan.
We do have a piece that, again, there'll be an easement document that is drafted up that will be presented to the trustees for review. And then we'll also have a warrant article again in one of the town meetings that's coming up for approval of those.
Great, thank you.
So do
I
we
think
have a
that-
motion?
I guess I was gonna also say that I think, Ryan mentioned, the memo from town council. I did get a chance to read through that, and in my sort of synopsis of that memo, the memo is about the recreation use or open space use that may or may not, well, it definitely was part of the gazebo circle approval back in the day, back in the mid-90s. And what town council essentially concluded is somewhere in the early 2000s when the property changed hands, it appears that events overcame and that was no longer part of the negotiated agreement for the permit, for the special permit for gazebo circle. So that seemed to have, that requirement seemed to have been negotiated away with some other things that were happening in the area. So, in a couple of prior meetings, that was a point of discussion, and it seems like that issue has been wrapped up.
Right.
That there isn't something still hanging out there on there.
So do we have any other questions or comments from the field, from abutters? Do you see anything, Andrew? Julie?
Everybody's video is off. I don't see any hands raised at the moment.
I don't have, there are some abutters in the Zoom room, but I don't see any of that. Maybe Anne, just unmuted.
I was trying to raise my hand, but I wasn't able to. I'll take my, okay, I was gonna try to take my camera, open my camera so I can see everybody, you can see me. Nope, sorry. Well, my question is, I have a couple questions. One about the tree removal.
Oh, first of all, would you please
the
identify yourself and provide your address? That would be helpful for us.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so I'm Ann Manna, and my husband Michael Manna is here as well, and we live at 156 Hopkins Street, right next door. That's my house, yeah, our house right there. So my first question is the tree in the back of the pump house, which is very close to our yard, which would block a lot of the pump house. I'm just concerned once that tree comes down, are you gonna, Ryan had mentioned that they could put other trees up, blah, blah, blah. Like, what will your plan be if that tree is taken down?
And I don't believe we're taking down those.
You're taking
I think
one,
he's referring to this one, right, Ann?
That 112-inch tree.
right, yeah.
Are those 6-inch tree? I can't. They look
This
like
one's
6-inch trees,
This one's
right?
a 12 right here, and then these 3 are labeled as 6. It's kind of hard to see in this picture too. I think this is one of them.
Is that
Not
one of the
quite.
12?
And so,
And if we find that by taking down that tree, we don't have enough coverage or spread, I'm happy to put up maybe some arborvitaes or something like that.
that's a big tree, and
I will tell you, just based on previous conversations with the tree warden, he probably would not recommend a planting of another tree. I would say maybe an evergreen or some arborvitaes or something that would screen a little bit better, and that can be planted next to those trees. But again, I'm fine with putting plantings in there if we need to. And we can show them on the plan as well, just to reflect that. But if we find that we have enough coverage, then that's great. If not, then we can plant what we put on the plan too. I'm fine with that.
okay, because when, we talked before, the pump house is gonna be more over to the right side, not over to our yard on the left, so,
Right, and I understand, so, you know, when we do make these changes, you know, there is always, something always has to move a little bit to make the change, to have the driveway come in from the right, and so building had to be pushed a little bit to the left, and like, Ben had said, we did push it as far as we could to the northeast. Now, you are correct, from the original plan, we were tucked a little bit further over.
right,
So it, you know, it's either we come in from the gazebo circle and have the position here with the building, or we come off of Cedar Street and push it to the right. I think this, at the end of the day, is probably a better plan, coming off of gazebo.
mhm.
And again, I'm happy with showing plantings on that side. I would just have to take a look and see how close they are to that fence and what we can plant in.
Yeah, we'd have to watch the fence line there.
And the other question was about the, HVAC, and, I know when it was asked about the noise, you know, I forget what her name was, I'm sorry, but you said, I don't think so about the noise, and then somebody else said it was just like a humming noise. Well, that is very close to our yard, and I will say, on a night like tonight, like when somebody said, when the air conditioner's off and we sit out on our deck, I'm sure I'm gonna be able to hear it. Which is a real bummer, to be honest, because no one in gazebo is gonna hear it, because they're so much farther away. But that's right, like, you know, my deck is like pretty much overlooking over there, so that is a concern, that is a big concern. I was happy to hear, though, that if you do put the generator, it would be more towards the front. That was like a concern too, if the generator was gonna be like around the back. I just like was wondering what that was gonna look like.
Yeah, just to be clear, Ann, there is no generator going in.
No, I know, the temporary one.
Well,
If there was an emergency and you had to
if
put
there's right, and again, that'd be a very rare occurrence, and in that occurrence, we'd be having a fire situation happening. But again, there's no permanent generator going in, and I do feel with the placement of where that air handling unit is, and what Cassandra had said as how it's not as big as it is. It's more of a fan that's blowing out the exhaust versus you know, really loud noise, and I think that projects a little more away from you than towards you.
Yeah, I can, you know, I think last time we showed some pictures of a similar pump station that we put in PVD. We were planning to use the same unit as that one, and, you know, I've been to that pump station many times, and, you know, stood right outside of it, probably, you know, approximately here when the unit is here, and I have not heard it. And so that's why I was saying you know, I guess I don't think, or, you know, from over here, my recollection from being near that unit was I couldn't hear the sound, so.
You know, I guess I will mention, it is a necessity for this type of unit with a building like this to have, just for dehumidification purposes, for corrosion control. Just airflow alone wouldn't be enough to extend the life expectancy of those pumps, just for corrosion purposes. Again, I don't really believe you'll have as much of an issue as maybe the previous layout.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly, there's 24 or however wide feet of structure there that's providing noise shielding, so you'd probably be able to hear noise from other locations that have a direct line of sight.
Yeah, and again, we can look at maybe trying to get in a little bit more of a natural buffer there too, and that might help. But you know, we'll check what our clearances with these fences are, and we'll work with Weston Sampson, see if we can put something else in there for the replacement of that 12-inch tree.
Okay, and my next question would be, I know you talked about depending on what type of winter we have, you know, would start possibly end of the winter or spring. will we be notified when, or is it gonna be like today, like that the bulldozer just shows up and they start, cutting some branches down and started digging? It would have been nice, I mean, especially where the meeting was tonight, so, it was upsetting, cause I thought you guys were just going right ahead with the whole plans and stuff, cause we got no notification. Do you guys notify the abutters that things are gonna start?
Yeah, you'll get notifications. You'll get notifications through, once we know who the contractor is going to be, you will receive a notification, either hand delivered in the mail. You'll also receive what we call a code red alert, or people refer to as a reverse 911, when construction actually starts. What had happened today is just simple test pits. We do them on every project. I know the commission has seen a lot of test pit information come through on a lot of their site plan projects. They're required to know what we're doing for drainage purposes and for foundation design purposes. So that's what they were doing today. Really no construction, just more of investigative work.
No, right, but as an abutter, not really understanding that that's the first thing you do, we were all like, what the heck's going on today,
Yeah, and I can understand that. I would just tell you in general, for something like that, no notification goes out, not even for a regular site project. It's just investigative work, sort of just like a survey that would be done or something like that. So I do appreciate your comment, and you will get information and updates for when construction will begin.
Thank you. And then the last thing, I guess, I wanted just to mention, I appreciate you looking into, with the council about like the playground, but our concern wasn't like to have a playground built there. It was that we were always told that nothing was gonna, be built on that property. So it was more just, making sure it was okay to be doing this on this, because way back in the day, when we were told that, and obviously I'm glad you guys looked into it, because there were things that were said and that changed or whatever, but I just wanted to, it wasn't just because we want a playground there. That's not the reason at all. And I just wanted to make sure about the lower field, Ryan, what's happening with that? Is that just staying as is?
Yeah, as you can see, we're not doing anything to that lower section. We never were proposing that. We wanted to leave that open.
I wanted to just make sure, though. I wanted to make sure, yeah.
Yeah, no, you can see on the plan that nothing is indicated down there. The only thing that will be coming through that area, there's I don't know if you can see it, but there's a 15-foot wide easement.
No, this is the setback.
That's a setback, but in that 15-foot setback, actually, I don't know how big the easement is for RMLD, but they'll be coming underground from one of the poles to feed our electrical supply. So there may be like a manhole sort of right around that jog in that, yep, there you go. So that's the only change. Other than that, everything will remain the same. But that's just a flush manhole.
Right, and what about the extra telephone?
Sorry, you cut out there. Ann,
Anna?
you there?
Is there
I
something?
think she was asking about the extra telephone pole, but I don't know if she can hear us
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, I don't know, I guess my Wi-Fi or my connection was not good for a minute. I just asked, because there was talk about adding another telephone pole over by, like to the left of our driveway, in between the other ones, so I just wondered what was happening with that.
I believe I don't have the sketch from RMLD, but I don't believe it's near your driveway. I think it's
Closer.
Yeah,
It's
It's
Yeah,
closer
right
to
around
the
where-
existing utility pole,
yeah.
right on the corner.
Next to the other one, next to the one closest to gazebo?
Correct, yep.
So then they don't have to take that tree down?
this one.
The-
The one
Or
that's, there's one that's very close to the street.
I don't believe so. I don't recall any of that in our conversations. Do you, Ben, with RMLD? No.
I do not, no, that tree is pretty far away from what I can tell on Google Earth here.
Okay,
I don't think so, Ann.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we really try to stay away from taking down trees, as RMLD does as well.
We certainly don't like taking trees down.
Thank you.
We also have tracks, which is a communications line going up through this easement as well. So it'll be electrical and communication.
Right, but all underground from the pole, from a riser.
Correct. Yep.
So you will see, and during construction, you will see trenching come down through there. But it'll all be reseeded and restored back to the way it was. And the only thing visible will be a manhole
Okay,
for maintenance purposes.
okay. And then maintenance, that's gonna fall under
The town, this is town property, it'll fall under DPW, correct?
We're more inclined to take better care of it.
My husband was just asking if they would be better inclined to be taking better care of it than they do now.
Yes, it'll be a facility, it'll be on a routine cutting schedule.
And that's like the top and the bottom, right?
Yes,
Field, both fields, okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have anybody else from the abutters group who would like to comment or pose questions? Andrew, Julie?
I'm not seeing anyone. We do have a couple additional abutters here in the Zoom room though. I don't know if they're here for this project. I assume they are, but they're not. Linda is here. It looks like she might want to speak. She just
Yeah, sorry, Linda Antonero, Gazebo Circle.
Yes.
And I just was curious, Ryan, about the easement document. What might we expect to get that? Is that coming soon our way, or?
Yeah, town council, along with Weston and Sampson, Sampson's gonna be drafting up a plan for the easement limits and boundaries, and town council will inevitably draft up that language. As soon as they're done, I'll share that with the trustees.
We have to sign something, or?
Yeah, you will. We can go over all of that, along with town council, and we can go over the whole document together. I think right now what we have on the warrant right now is more generic, just to give the town approval to accept it, so we have a little bit of time to work with the language after the fact.
Would that September town meeting come first and then the document, or?
I believe so, but please don't hold me to that. Town council we could turn that around and have both ready in time, but I think the way they drafted the warrant, we don't need the documents in hand for that.
You'll just let us know when it's ready. And we'll-
Yeah, what'll happen at town meetings is that'll check the box on the town side to accept the easement. But that transaction won't be completed until both parties do it, and then it's recorded.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? I'd like to see a revision of the tree plan so that it indicates what you're going to plant in place of that either 6 or 10-inch one, right, that falls into that space. And I'd like to suggest something like a rhododendron, not an arborvitae, set about 3 feet away from this building, and that would fill in nicely.
I don't think it can be within the fence line.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're
can't.
gonna need to keep that clear for maintenance
Okay.
purposes.
Yeah, it's pretty strict with DEP regulations and clearances and what we need.
Okay.
Yeah, it would have to be kind of out over here.
Right, it doesn't necessarily need to be in exactly the same place, but somewhere in between there that keeps the fence line clear, right?
Yeah, I understand what Ann was getting at. I mean, obviously, it'd be more for screening and sound buffering, so as long as we could fill that gap of what's being taken up for that tree, I think it would serve the purpose. And we can certainly show them on the plan.
That would be good.
But I would certainly suggest that they're determined in the field where the exact location goes after we know how it's situated, what the gapping looks like.
I would agree with that because, right, always with trees, it's great. There's a little symbol here of those retaining, those trees that you're gonna retain. You know, the spread of those depends significantly on where you'd wanna put, you know, landscaping. So you really won't be able to do it until you get out there and exactly figure how those trees, what the spread of those trees look like and will be in the future, so.
So that
And
could,
the trees also help with like the lights too from over gazebo kind of blocks. It's kind of nice. It's like a natural buffer from the light. So that's another little concern I have, that's a good sized tree that, you know, does block the light. So that's why I was wondering what you were thinking of putting there.
Yeah, I would say I mean, obviously, you know, that 12-inch tree has taken quite a bit of time to grow. There's maturity there.
Yeah, it's big.
So it's not, you know, we wouldn't be putting something that tall back.
Right.
And if we did plant a, you know, deciduous tree or something like that, or some native tree, it'd take a while for it to get to that size. So I don't want to tell you that you'll get that full coverage in the top canopy right up front. You won't. I think what you'll see that we can accomplish is probably more of a screening and a buffer on the lower side right up front, and then maybe, you know, if those arborvitaes or whatever we decide to plant there grow to maturity, maybe we can get them up to 30 feet tall or something like that. I don't know. We'll have to look and see what we can put in.
Okay. Thank you.
That sounds good.
all right, should that be a condition as opposed to waiting for a new plan?
I think a condition would be good.
So, looking at the decision, there is a lot of discussion in there about porous pavement. I don't think that's where you're headed now with this revised, or are you?
No, it's still noted on the plan. We have porous pavement, but I will point out that I believe there is drainage under that river rock. Is that not correct, Ben?
Correct, yep.
Okay, yeah, so we'll be utilizing that river rock as sort of another LID, like low impact, but that'll be able to infiltrate if there's a failure of the porous pavement. It'll also infiltrate around the roof line, so.
Okay, I'm not seeing any lighting outside of this building. Is there any?
So Cassandra, correct me if I'm wrong, but we should have a motion detection light right above the door.
Okay, far away from the neighbors on the west side. Okay,
Yeah, only to come on
That's correct.
for motion, that's it.
Yeah, it would be, here,
excellent.
Yep.
which is here.
And again, I should point out that we don't have to maintain these as much as we do our sewer stations, which we visit every single day. These we will visit, but not to the extent that a sewer station really is maintained. They sort of need they're a little more require a little bit more operational maintenance than a booster station like this.
Okay. So do we have a motion to approve?
Well, I have one other thought,
Please.
because I also see in the conditions, which is great, I'm glad to see it, that it's in the conditions is a condition for land maintenance to be properly mowed, clean, and maintained in a healthy condition. And I also read the legal decision that said, you know, the town has basically released its obligation if it was ever really clearly there for recreational equipment. But do we want to maybe add something to that condition so that the land would also be cleaned, maintained, and generally held is the wrong word, but maintained in a primarily natural state. I'm just thinking like 15 years down the line, I think it would not be in keeping with what appears to be the initial intention of the land that was never locked up solidly, legally. But I would hate for it to end up being used as storage or for anything because it's town-owned land, to have it be, well, used in any way other than maintained as meadow, green, clean. And so I'm kind of thinking that it would be nice to add to that land maintenance ones, that it would be mowed, cleaned, maintained, and healthy, primarily natural condition, or something like that.
I can screen share the decision if you all want to talk about that at this point. Okay.
How do I stop screen sharing? Oh,
Be
here
like
we
a
are.
red button or
It's like not showing it to me, but
go to your Zoom window and you have like either at the bottom or the top. Okay.
Gotcha.
Just do that.
thank you for your assistance.
I don't know. So do you want to talk about what Heather was talking about? And was this where you were talking about it, Heather, or somewhere?
Yeah, that was the concept, and then there was just right above there, number 2 talks about land maintenance.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, so you've kind of got a condition in there that I'm suggesting we just maybe add to it so that it's maintained in a healthy and primarily natural state. I'm hedging on the word natural because it's, something that is mowed and cleaned and park-like isn't necessarily natural, but that's what I'm getting at if others are interested in including something like that too.
I don't know if that'll give you what you're looking for, which is, I assume that nothing else will be done with this lot. Is that the goal here?
Well, I guess I'm kind of looking for something that expresses that intention now as we're all sitting here at the meeting saying we're not going to use, saying that it will be, that the meadow below will be maintained as such. I'm maybe looking for something to express that intention. Maybe it's in the findings that this is the intention. Just clearly to put a record, to make a record that that's the intention.
We can make a record that's the intention, but I don't think that we are allowed to hold the town to any decision such as we'll never use it again for anything else, and we can't limit what the town does with this property.
But I do think, I agree with you, Tony. I don't think that we have that ability. I do think that it's wise to clearly state what the intent and sort of what this process has come up with the understanding of what's going to happen to with the rest of that. Because obviously, Julie and Andrew and everyone else that poured through, all those documents, that wasn't always stated. So it seems like it's important.
So basically,
And maybe it could even be something that it's, shall be properly mowed permanently because, like I agree with that because, and where it says.
You're cutting out, Ann.
Julie, I think the word you might be looking for is routinely.
But I know somebody was, injured and he was the only person who could mow that field. So it went months without being mowed. So, I do appreciate you guys maybe adding that in there or just making sure that, like you said, it is on this cycle and it is being done. permanently.
Yeah, I think the term routinely, implies that. I think that's the word you were looking for.
Okay. Okay.
Does this wording work, for everybody and me reckon too?
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks good.
Should I make it bigger? I just realized.
Please.
Make it bigger.
Bigger.
No,
For me,
Is that better?
Perpetuity capital.
And then I didn't catch everything that was said about the porous pavement, so if we can just revisit that.
that's fine.
Yeah, we can actually provide an O&M for that.
Do you really want to say in perpetuity by the town of Reading Department of Public Works? Because I think
I was just
by
thinking the same thing, John. I don't know if that,
By the,
we never know what's gonna happen, so.
but I would even go as far as saying by the property owner, but if you want to say by the town of Reading, I could go along with that too.
Yeah, I think by stating the town of Reading, whether it's done by, internal staff or contractor, that's covered.
That's a good catch.
We can start from the top if that seems right to CPDC.
Sure.
So I'm just gonna scroll and you can stop me, okay?
You're good.
Okay, we did add that we got a letter from town council today. We added in the revised plans that we got for this meeting. These parts didn't change, the existing conditions zoning. Andrew had the structure height highlighted here.
I
Can this be confirmed?
Yes, I confirmed 14 feet with Cassandra.
This has happened already, the staking, or no?
Yes, hasn't it?
Yeah, that happened today.
And then with regards to the, like list of things we might wanna see on our revised plan, I had put the easement, looked like the, approximate easement locations down below. That's acceptable to everybody, can take it out of here. The porous pavement is mentioned here. Is that still, I missed some of the discussion kind of cut in and out for me on that.
That's right. The way you have it is good.
That's correct.
Okay. We talked about trees.
Can you go back up for a second, Julie? Sorry. I believe that the driveway will provide access from the gazebo circle road to the west of the site. It's to the east. Unless we're
Nope, we're right. Correct.
You are
correct, yeah.
That
West should be changed to east.
Correct. Good.
the gazebo circle is to the east of the property. No? So the road goes back.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, just want to make sure I wasn't missing something, but yeah, I get what you're saying, to the eastern part of the site.
Oh, yes, yeah, I guess the road, driveway, depending on which way you're driving on it, travels west or east.
I think we could just say,
I think it's from.
better.
And here under trees, we need to specify the number of trees, not several. If it's 3, it needs to say 3.
We have that number, or was there going to be a revised plan submitted?
I don't have that number right now.
So if we could highlight several, then we know to change it when we get the rest of the plan.
So upon quick review, it looks like we're taking 3 trees out, but I would like to check that before that
Okay, so just
goes
highlight
down
that.
in history.
And is this where we say that part of the project is to replace trees that would otherwise screen the pump house with other appropriate and useful vegetation?
Exactly.
That would be the condition, not the finding.
Or is that a condition?
That's a condition.
And then the connection at Cedar Street, that would come out too, right? Because it's not connecting from Cedar Street anymore.
Nope, that's still correct. Utilities.
There's still utilities going through there, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Oh, okay, okay.
Are you removing keyword trees because you're not putting a road through there?
Correct.
Okay. But still some trees.
Yes.
Correct. We can get the specific amount. I just want to make sure we don't miss that anything. I think it was 3, but I want to just make sure.
And then which part did you want as a condition? Sorry, was it this part?
It can add it when we get down to conditions about
Okay.
the trees that will be removed to be replaced with
Okay,
Suitable.
other screening vegetation.
great. Fence isn't changing. The lighting we talked about, this is the exact answer that Cassandra gave. I think it's written right here.
Yep.
Did you mention this?
Yeah, I believe we discussed that the river rock around the building will serve as an infiltration gallery.
Okay,
Will there be curbing on that driveway, or is that gone now?
I did not see any proposed. Is that correct, Ben?
I can speak to that. I think I mentioned this in my email response to you, Andrew. We will be putting curbing to kind of direct the water, on that downslope side, similar to the function that the curbing would have had previously.
If it's not clear on the plans, we'll make sure it's clear on the plan.
Yeah, we'll be adding curbing on that downside of the driveway there.
okay. Trying to go back somewhere. So the proposed construction schedule is notably more strict than what we allow in our construction general bylaw. Is that real? Is this a real schedule?
Yep, that's normally what we put in our contract documents.
Great.
That's construction hours, so there's still maybe exercise or starting equipment at 6:30. Julie, just like the bylaw,
Yep.
but
And here's the waivers for Cpdc to vote. Anybody?
Nope.
Don't require a landscape plan?
Nope.
Okay.
I think we're gonna take care of that with
Conditions.
Yeah, the conditions.
Okay.
Can I ask one question, Julie?
Is that Anna?
Who's speaking, is it Linda?
Yes, sorry, Linda. Yep. Could you go back to the top? I saw in the beginning there was, you got some, a letter from one of our neighbors at 513. It was in the beginning section. I just, I didn't know if I can hear what she had. It said Betty Ward right there, G. No, wait, H. Yeah, that was just one of our neighbors. Is there anything that anybody could comment on?
I can take a look and see. Does anybody remember what was in that letter?
Betty wrote in support of the application.
It was support?
Yeah.
Do you want me to show it on the screen?
Please.
Sure, 1 second. It's right here in handwriting at the bottom of the legal notice she got in the mail.
Okay.
Love this.
Oh, she's in support of it. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I just didn't know if she had any particular inquiry. I live 2 doors from her, so I was gonna ease her concerns or answer her question, but thank you.
Thank you.
No worries. Okay, just get back. Where was I?
On to conditions.
Sure. Did you want to vote on waivers or wait till the end?
We should complete waivers now, I think.
Well, before we start voting, we need, right, don't we need to close the public hearing? So
Yes.
I don't know if you want to close the public hearing now, or if we want to go through all this and then close the public hearing and then vote.
What's the general consensus of the group?
My recommendation
I-
is that we're reviewing it, allow the public to make comment,
Agree.
and then we'll close the public hearing.
Correct.
We can
And then
vote.
vote,
I agree.
yes.
Fine.
Great. So starting with the conditions, we just have general conditions of the limitations of this decision, pretty standard. Solar, I think the applicant had indicated a willingness to work with RMLD to see if it's possible to put solar on the building. We have some conditions prior to the start of construction. I had added a few tonight while you guys were talking. But so we have a general condition about receiving other permits. A condition about staking out the building, which sounds like already happened. Oh, sorry, it jumped. And then just the easement document, getting that signed, sealed, and delivered and recorded, obviously has to happen before this goes forward. And I know you were talking about some plan changes. I added the easements, and then there was conversation about a revised tree plan. Is that something Cpdc wants?
Correct.
Whatever you want to call it, we'll call it revised tree plan.
Trees or vegetation to be added,
Landscaping.
landscaping. Excellent.
Were there any other plan changes?
I would just ask that curbing be noted.
Will there be any, with the curbing, is there gonna be any drains put there? Any idea about that?
No, no, we're looking to do low impact design, so that's your porous pavement and your Riverstone infiltration gallery around the building. There won't be any catch basins.
Okay.
Should I keep going?
Please.
Okay. And then we just have some standard construction conditions about construction hours, activities, erosion controls, site inspections, and then use of that parcel that's in conservation control, during construction. There's a lot of discussion of that conservation parcel in here, keeping it.
Julie, can you just stop on 2? I'm not really sure the term in perpetuity should apply.
Okay,
That refers to the entirety, and that may not be the case.
okay. And this you are already agreed to, right? Okay. All right. That's the gist. And then there's the standard information about if we modify this, anyway. Or to come back, potentially.
So John, will they need to come back and join us?
The only thing that they need to change on this site plan approval is how many trees are taken down, and everything else they can go through those revised plans and go through the town.
Excellent,
Town staff to town staff.
okay, excellent, excellent. Okay, if there's no more discussion, then we need a motion to approve this plan.
Motion to
Nope.
close the
Motion to
public
close,
hearing.
yes. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing for 160 Hopkins Street, Gazebo Circle Pump Station.
Second?
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then we need to vote on the waivers.
Yeah.
Motion to approve waivers for, from the site plan checklist, including a waiver from providing architectural plans, landscape plans, photometric plans, drainage calculations, stormwater pollution prevention plan, and a traffic study, as well as a waiver from providing a site plan review fee.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Now we'll need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the site plan for at 160 Hopkins Street for the Gazebo Circle Pump Station by the Reading Department of Public Works.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Has passed.
Great.
Okay,
Thanks, everyone.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
No problem. Next item on the agenda is zoning bylaw amendment, November 2021, in preparation for November 2021 town meeting. Do we have that change to the document?
Yeah, so, Andrew and I actually worked on it like the day after your last meeting, because we had all those ideas in our head. We were like, let's do this now. Forget everything. And then I sent it around a couple times. I heard from, I think just you, Pam. That's totally fine. We can talk about anything we want to change now. Can you all see it on your screen?
Not
No.
yet.
No.
Sorry?
No.
It's not on the screen.
Oh, it's on my screen, but I didn't share it.
Oh, well,
Okay, one step at a time. So, um, the zoning bylaw amendment, November 2021 in preparation for November 2021 town meeting. So, next item on the agenda is zoning bylaw amendment for November 2021 in preparation for November 2021 town meeting. All right, there you go. That should be better. And let me just zoom out a little bit so you can see the comments on the side. So this is a continuation of the hearing that we opened on July 12th, to talk about the triggers for site plan review and minor site plan review within the zoning bylaw, especially as regards change of use, but also as regards additional, like new construction, expansion, and changes to a parking requirement or parking layout configuration. So the discussion last time was really, like, my memory of it is that it was really complex, and there's a lot to consider when we're talking about what kinds of projects when Cpdc is talking about what kind of projects you actually want to come before you. So Andrew and I attempted to kind of try to simplify the situation. I don't know if you remember last time, but we were kind of like in this, like, does staff need to calculate if the additional 2 seats is going to require additional parking, and like how much information are we going to need from an applicant right up front to be able to determine whether it's a minor site plan review, a full site plan review, an administrative approval, so we tried to simplify it with this new language so that it can be a little bit more straightforward, and we can have a little bit less information, like, right up front before we tell an applicant what the process is going to be. I don't know if we achieved that or not, but that was kind of the gist of it. So what we did is we separated out new construction from expansion. So we have here in full site plan review, we have new construction that results in a requirement for more parking spaces as a full site plan review. So it's like, if you're doing both of those things, you need a full site plan review. So I'll talk about that first and then go to minor, and then we can talk about the change of use thing next, I think. And so then in minor, the triggers are separated. So if it's 500 square feet of new construction just on its own, regardless of whether it needs more parking, or it's an expansion of an existing principal use or business, it comes to you. And that we need to pause on and talk about what we mean by expansion and get more clarity on that. But then also, if it's just the addition of 2 or more parking spaces, a change to the layout of 2 parking spaces, that would come to you. So either of those things could trigger a minor site plan. And here we have new construction in both places, right? So new construction with a change to parking comes to full site plan review, and just new construction that may or may not have a change to parking comes to minor. So there's some level of review happening. That way we don't necessarily need to know. And if you have it at minor site plan review and you're like, oh, whoa, staff are totally way off, this is a huge change to parking, or in the process it's discovered that more parking is needed or something, then it can be like kicked up to site plan, a full site plan. But it's not like it's all or nothing and then it falls through the cracks. Anyway, so complicated. So that's did I miss anything, Andrew?
No, I think you summed it up pretty well. Trying to think without it right in front of me.
So that's the kind of how we separated those 2 things out. And then in terms of change of use, we kept it pretty much the same, I think, as the last time we talked about it. A change of use within an existing building to a use that's permitted by special permit comes to a full site plan review. So it would be a combined site plan review special permit application, right? And then a change of use that's just one by right line to another by right line can come just to minor, as long as the change doesn't trigger a full site plan review because they're doing other work that triggers full. So that's the gist here.
I like it. I think even though it took you a while to explain it, I think it's actually fairly simple. I mean, once we get, we boil down to what's it saying and what's the distinction between the different things. I guess the one thing that I don't know if we need to be more explicit on, but what's new construction. But other than that, I mean, to me, it seems pretty straightforward. I say that obviously with a hesitant tone in my voice, because the more, you kind of gotta think of it and see what can fit through the cracks. But we also don't want to devise things. We're never gonna catch everything, because it just doesn't work, ever happen.
I had a similar reaction, which Julian Andrews says to me that you did a good job at parsing things out where they needed to be parsed out, because it went from being confusing and easily confounding ourselves to something that now I think is fairly straightforward. I guess with the exception of, are we clear on what the expansion of an existing principal or business use or business is? And I see that you inserted a question there. I'm thinking of it, I think of that as the expansion of an existing use into another adjacent space or something like that, but maybe that's because of the example we were hypothetically giving ourselves last time.
It's right, and I think right, new construction is that the development of a new structure or new square footage, new square footage within a structure.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
there's where the rub comes. You've got let's call it a strip mall, and somebody decides to take over existing space.
Right.
You've got, the first business is expanding, the strip mall is not. Should that require a minor site plan review? And my thought process is at that point, probably yes, because unless you're doing a like for like, restaurant to restaurant, you're probably going to have some change in parking requirements.
Yeah.
yeah, and that even gets there in C. It's like if you have a change of use and it's a by right use, I like that fits into the minor site plan review, because it's different from, I like the differentiation that you made there, much different from that, there's a difference between that and something that would require a special permit, which would be the full site plan review.
But that's not a change of use within the well, that's the question. Is that a change of use within the existing strip mall? Because you've already got.
Yes, because it's within an existing structure, right?
But business A is doing the same use. They're not changing from a restaurant to a bank. They may be taking over a bank's area, but the original business is not changing the use.
When we're talking about expansion.
Didn't we just have this with Bunratty's?
That is one of the issues, is that Bunratty's did, we didn't. So yes, Bunratty's expanded.
But we did a minor site plan for review.
No.
for
We
that?
didn't.
No?
We didn't do
We
anything.
didn't do anything.
Oh,
So,
wow.
in that situation, that's covered under item A.
Mm-hmm.
An increase in gross floor area of 500 feet or more via the expansion of an existing principal use or business. And I think what we need to add into there is in an existing structure, right? So there's two different conditions we're talking about here, right? There's expansion. I think expansion in this case means expansion within an existing structure. But however, in A, we also have expansion via new construction. So if you're increasing your business by 500 square feet, whether it's by adding on more square foot, more building, or taking over someone else's previous space,
Yeah.
then it's a minor site plan review.
Could we just eliminate everything after the word feet? Basically, an increase in gross floor area of 500 square feet or more.
I don't think we would end up with the same interpretation we'll end up with if we have it really clearly spelled out like this.
I agree.
Okay.
And I just have a little modification as more of an editing thing, is where we said business within an existing structure. I think of an expansion going into an existing structure, and that's just my suggestion to help with clarity.
All right, so I'll go back to Julie and say, if I had a restaurant that expanded into 600 feet in a prior existing restaurant, would it be classified under here? The building already exists, restaurant B went out, restaurant A decided to take over their space for 600 square feet. Does that get caught here?
Yes.
Yes.
I think because it says business,
Okay,
right? So it's in that case, like, if it's a restaurant going into a former restaurant space, that wouldn't necessarily, we wouldn't know, or a future planner might not know to interpret
Mhm.
that this applies if it didn't say business here,
okay.
right?
And the reason why I think that is appropriate, right? That business A, right, that is expanding, they had certain conditions when they went and got their approval. You know, I'm sure this board would have talked to them about, loading, about, about their parking arrangements, their hours, all sorts of things, which when they expand by 600 square feet, may or may not change. I mean, it may come out that they come in and say, oh, we're just putting in, however X number of new tables, or we're actually going to use that space for storage or something, and they say we're not changing anything, then it's really easy. But there's a big potential for them to be adding, I'm not picking on anyone, but right, they're adding ice cream to their, what was pizza, it's still one restaurant, but now they're going to have completely different hours, completely different loading, all sorts of different things that wasn't contemplated in the original.
Or that they're having, I think a more extreme example that came into my mind is a place that may have music in its business, may expand into an adjacent business, and may decide, hey, that's going to be our music place. And they were going to, have all the tables be in another one. You could reconfigure the entire site in a way that has more impact, not only in terms of loading, but in terms of noise and all of that. So it's good to come back and visit us again.
I also should clarify that, in case you didn't remember, within minor site plan review, there's also the ability for the chair of the CPDC, chair and secretary, to allow staff to do something administratively. So if it's triggering one of these things, but really in a super benign way, that's also a possibility if we obviously get authorization from you. It gives us a little bit, like a little more flexibility for situations that might come up that we're not thinking about, that might be like, oh, this really doesn't need to come to a meeting. So I just wanted to remind you of that.
Great.
So to go back to the expansion question. So the business opening a second location, like, are we really, like, that wouldn't necessarily come unless it's like triggering one of these thresholds on its own merits? Is that like a second location that's like not adjacent to the existing one, it's like in a separate building? If it's not triggering any of these things on its own, if it's not technically a change of use, it's not really doing a tenant fit out. Well, I guess I'm just trying to think like how that fits into here.
So I guess it doesn't, depending upon what they're doing. If you have restaurant A and you're taking over restaurant B's site that's in a different building, then if you don't make any changes, if the size is the same and everything else is equal, it would not trigger it. Just because you have a prior business in town doesn't mean you have to go to site plan review. Just as a new business wouldn't have to go to site plan review in this case.
Okay, I mean, I guess it's just like we're talking about expansion of a business into an existing structure. I just want to be clear on how we're to interpret that. If it is, or if it's like a business that's located in other towns and is coming into Reading. If it doesn't, I guess we'd really have to have a conversation with currently Pam and Heather about that and kind of figure it out as we go.
You know, that's a good question, because really this is about, and I'm gonna challenge us to think about this. It's really, we're talking here about expansion into an abutting space.
Right.
That was my main question. If we're
Yeah.
talking about that, maybe we should say that.
Yeah, because I think in the situation where, that Julie was talking about, whether it's expanding into a completely different space, not abutting, but even if it's just, 3 doors down, if that space was already approved for the same use, and it can operate under the conditions of that previous site plan approval, then I'm not so sure that they should, there's no issue there.
Right.
It's different when it's expanding into an abutting space, because you know that things are gonna change. The footprint and the things are gonna change with the original.
For example, in the 2-restaurant scenario, you will probably eliminate one of the 2 kitchens because there's no need to have the second kitchen. You may also eliminate the restrooms, depending upon the size and whatever.
If you're allowed to, yeah.
If you're allowed to. So those are significant changes that I would assume happen when you take over an abutting space.
Yeah.
If you were to take over the space 3 doors down, well, you're still gonna need a kitchen, you're still gonna need restrooms. So there's less of a change, I would assume.
It's a good question, Julie. I think that we're really, in that expansion, are just talking about expansion into an adjacent property.
Yeah.
Is this wording okay?
I might even specify even more clearly adjacent, and I'm just thinking about how, like, when you do a butter notification, a butter is beyond just next door.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay. That's good. And then one thing that Andrew and I were talking about earlier today, just so we're all on the same page. So the way that change of use is defined, let me just go up to it. It talks about reclassification to a different line on either of the tables of uses. So downtown smart growth district is actually not identified in our table of uses. It's the uses that are allowed there are actually spelled out within section 10.5. So we were thinking, okay, how does this apply to our buildings that were constructed under the 40R bylaw, right? Which has, I think, some of them could apply, but the ones that talk about change of use we'd probably need to defer back to the 40R zoning, and then there's certain parameters in 40R that talk about like percentage of floor area devoted to like institutional and office uses, and certain uses that are allowed that don't have a parking requirement. But I guess I just wanted to bring that up now so that we can try to hash that out so we're all on the same page about what applies when, with regards to downtown.
I'm not exactly sure how to do it, but it seems like we should find a way to find that change of use with reference to the new 40R 10.5 section 2. And if there's not the same table, we can't refer to a table there, but somehow figure out how to refer to that section.
Okay. So in this one, I have my cursor on right now. We actually mentioned just use is permitted by right within the zoning district. We do mention change of use and capitalize it, but we also mention just the zoning district. I mean, we could be extra clear and say including the downtown smart growth district, or something like that, if that's helpful. And I mean, I do think like some of our 40R decisions kind of allow for, like since they don't have tenants when they come in, but they don't provide parking, it's assumed that the use is gonna be one of the following uses that doesn't require parking, right? And then other uses that aren't spelled out in section 10.5 like aren't necessarily allowed. So I just want to talk this through a little.
Well, the correct fix would be to, in 10.5, where the allowed uses are listed as office, retail, restaurant, institutional, and consumer service, actually list them as they are in the table so that they reference back to the original.
Say that again, Tony.
So you've got allowed uses, and they basically go against the definitions for 10.5. Office, retail, restaurant, institutional, consumer service. Those are what are allowed in downtown smart growth district. The reality is those definitions should refer back to the original table of uses. So whereby you have something that says office is, give me a second. says office, a place for regular performance of business transactions, services generally intended for administrative, professional, and clerical activities, including a medical or dental office or health clinic. That definition should be changed to reflect whatever it is we state in the official table of uses.
No, but that's a really good, it's a really good thing to refer to that, and I'm wondering if it would be clean enough in the same way that the change of use here is defined as a change from one line or the other in, I don't have it in front of me now, in that section 4.6.2.1. No, wait, wherever it is, that's wrong. But wherever that is, 5.3 or 5.2, could it be also, or a change between one of the allowed uses listed in section 10.5.5.1. Just refer to that list, because there are several uses right there. And they're not in a table, but we do list the uses there.
So I think that we'll run into problems if we try and govern by right uses through, which is what we're talking about right now, with in the process we're developing for that, with 40R uses, which, as Tony mentioned, the definitions aren't exactly the same, the conditions aren't the same. Those properties have a specific, we know they all have specific conditions. They have different requirements in terms of their ability to change from one use to the next. I would almost spell out the fact that and when we're talking about now, this process does not apply to the uses that were approved under downtown smart growth. Perhaps we should develop a separate section within downtown smart growth to govern changes of uses within those buildings that were approved there, because I do think it's probably different sets of issues, because they're all under a plan that we they all, those buildings play together a little bit better and more cohesively than random buildings in downtown.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It makes sense to me, because what I'm pausing on is like, we don't, when a new business opens up in one of the buildings that have been approved, one of the buildings that's been approved under 40R, we never go through an initial re-review of the businesses opening up. So then to pull ourselves into a review of change of use gets weird, gets awkward in terms of, okay, where's the starting point? So that's a long way of saying that makes sense to me.
Yeah, that makes sense to me too. And we can add something, like, since we're working on the 40R bylaw, we can try to rectify that in our changes that we're working on.
Yeah.
I mean, right, we have one building that already every use, most uses in that building, 40R approved building, most of the uses changed on the, in the commercial space already, right? And so we have, and changed use types too.
You're talking about the podiatrist?
The podiatrist,
Dental.
the dental office. In those, no matter, I think no matter when those change,
We didn't interfere.
they do need to come,
They
they
do
do
come
need to
into
come,
force. Exactly.
Yeah.
It was change from a pizza parlor to a dental office is a huge change.
And right now, we don't have a mechanism for that to come back before us.
unless they are tripping that percentage of use
Of like office and professional space.
Yeah,
Which is another thing we should talk about.
yes.
When we're talking about 40 arcs, I think it was that actual wording about percentage of ground floor area devoted to office and institutional, I think was envisioning a building that actually has the entire ground floor as commercial, not what we're actually seeing with the new projects.
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
we've made a lot of notes in the 40 hour bylaw. Okay, this is super helpful feedback. The next steps for this, if you feel like it's ready with after discussion tonight, would be to close this public hearing, and then we can get this language off to town council and try to get it in the warrant for November town meeting.
I think we'll also need to re-review it just for our own sanity.
Sorry, Julie, I just have 2 questions. In letter A there, we had notes about removing the parentheses of regardless or exemptions or waivers. I don't know if that's still warranted. And B, I think we should capitalize special permit because it's defined in section 2.
Okay.
I think that we keep regardless of exemptions or waivers. That was the whole notion that, that if a property is, given that way, if a property is changing parking and, parking need, and they don't really need to change parking because they're within 300 feet of a public lot, we still need to, right, that changes demand and that's an impact.
Yes.
And so even if they get that 300-foot waiver, we still want to have them.
Right.
I think the reason we were thinking we could potentially remove it is because just 500 square feet of new construction alone now requires a minor site plan review. So
And
like,
change of uses get reviewed as well.
regardless of whether it needs parking and then gets an exemption, or if it doesn't need parking, like it still gets a minor site plan review. So I think that's why we felt like maybe we could get rid of that.
So the logic here is that minimally, you're gonna have a minor site plan review for 500 square feet. And it'll only be major if it actually impacts the parking, as opposed to impacts the parking needs of the town. It actually has to impact their parking requirements.
Right.
Yes.
Like, and they're figuring out a way to accommodate it, right? Like, it's not like it requires it, but they get an exemption because they're within 300 feet, which would be captured under minor site plan review. Just because those 2 things are separate. We've separated out parking from new construction. So the new construction on alone, regardless of how it impacts parking, will come to minor site plan review. As well as the expansion, like we talked about.
Right.
I could probably live with that.
Yeah, that makes sense, with the way that you've dealt with parking now separately.
I think that actually works out for like the downtown structures that like feasibly can't necessarily provide more parking, but like may technically trigger the requirement. Like they would come in for a minor and we'd have to talk about that. But like if they require it, they're within 300 feet, they don't technically have to provide it. They can't provide it on their site anyway. So it's like a full site plan review might seem a little bit much, but they're coming to you for minor. I don't know.
I will just throw out there that, once again, I would be happy to remove the 300-foot exemption. That may be a discussion for another day, but keep it in the forefront.
Okay, do you have what you need, Julie, to send this back around through to the team?
I was waiting to hear the final word from you and John now on that. And Heather, I don't know if Heather chimed in or not.
Well, the question is, do we need another round? Or can we let Julie and Andrew take what we've said, adjust the current proposal, and then we would have the open meeting, the public meeting on that proposal, at which time we also get a second chance to make adjustments.
Yep.
There's nothing that says we have to do exactly what the wording is. We can make the adjustments. We would then vote on it, send it to the select board for inclusion in the warrant.
Yep, I agree with that.
The challenge is if you want another review of this and you don't want to schedule another meeting, you're not going to miss the warrant for November. So that's fine. We can queue this up for April if that's the preference. If you want to keep thinking about it and working on it. But so your next meeting after this is September 13th and with town council review and the warrant preparation, and then I don't know when the select board's voting to close the warrant, but I think it's sometime, it might be the 14th of September, actually, or somewhere in there. I think the timing, it might not work.
Yeah.
Because we've had
Gotcha.
public comment on this already, right? We didn't get it.
In the public hearing right now,
Yeah, so our choices are close the public hearing and get it on the warrant, or do another pass and put it on the spring warrant.
Right.
I thought this whole meeting was scheduled so that we can resolve this and move it along.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel fine on this. I can appreciate the additional thought that went in to make it be so much clearer.
I'm gonna go back to, because I'm not sure that because I was thinking it through, the last issue that we talked about on this, about item 4.6, yeah, item A, that's up on the screen now, versus item A in the minor site plan review.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where, I wasn't clear where we ended on that.
We were discussing whether to remove the regardless of exemptions. And I was waiting to hear what you thought, you and Pam.
So I guess the concern is that if we remove the exemptions, parentheses, right, then that covers pretty much everyone. Right? I mean, how many properties in downtown don't have that exemption? And therefore, when does if someone has the exemption, when do they ever come to site plan for site plan review? They could add on, they could add on a ton of new development.
Let's say
right?
30,000 square feet.
Yeah. And they're in for a minor site plan review.
I see, that's an interesting point, John.
and so that's why I think that, you know, sure, there may be some, like you said, there's probably, honestly, more often when someone will come in and say, you know, oh, we're adding on, you know, 600 square feet for storage, and we have this exemption, we don't need to provide more parking, but then they're roped into doing a full site plan review. Chances are there's
Something's good.
yeah, something else is gonna come up. I just don't feel like we have that protection if we don't include that.
And on that same thought process, the addition, including the waivers in that also helps, because if we are granting someone a waiver for parking and then they come back with more space, be it business A or industrial, wherever, they go, well, I got a waiver, I don't need to come back.
Yeah,
Yeah, now I'm remembering exactly why we put those parentheses in there. It was to be really clear. I can see what you guys are saying, and if we wanted to do that, again, just for clarity, I would say regardless of other parking related exemptions or waivers, because there are exemptions and waivers for a whole bunch of things.
that's good. Yep.
I've been persuaded to kind of keep that in there, but actually even clarify that so that it's very clear that we're talking about parking related exemptions and waivers.
I agree with that.
Yep.
Okay. Right, yeah, because it's like there's no upper limit here on square footage.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yep. I guess like I'm thinking of downtown and I'm thinking existing buildings that would want to add on probably don't have a lot to work with, but
Here we thought of everything.
we never think of everything.
No.
Yeah, but this captures the things that we haven't thought about, so that's
Yeah,
good.
right. Okay. Okay,
So the question is whether we try to get it under this one.
good thinking.
Or not.
So we're leaving it and it's clarified.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. And then is there anything else, any other questions here that we had that we needed an answer to? Let me scroll down and see there. I don't think so. That's all. You do have some members of the public. I don't know if they'd like to add some thoughts to this or not.
Before we go there, does anyone have a concern with the term new construction? Or is that just?
You mean in terms of if it's clearly understood?
Yeah, yes, yeah. I mean, I know what we mean, but
Well, let's compare notes. I think of new construction as brand new construction, not necessarily not redoing the interior of a building.
what's an addition to an existing building?
Right. Oh, that would be new construction to me.
But does new construction include, I'm taking a storage room and I'm turning it into a dance floor? You're gonna have to rebuild that area, that's construction.
It's new construction.
But wouldn't that be a change of use?
Or
No, because the primary business is still the same.
Would that be expansion of use?
Could be expansion, but
Probably
we are
not.
trying to clean up and make it as
Right.
clear as possible.
Yes.
I think of new construction as something, I don't know where this would go. I think of new construction as something that's like an addition. a structure that wasn't there before, and after you're done constructing, it is. And if we have differences, then we should probably clarify.
Well, right, so this is modifying an increase in gross floor area of 500 square feet or more, right? So that's the clock, right? This is modifying that. So I think, yeah, to Tony's point, you know, is new construction the construction that, not new square footage,
No, but
but,
new construction in an existing footprint.
And I think we want to go the opposite way, I thought. That we do care about the existing footprint. We cared about expanding the existing footprint.
yes,
Right.
correct.
Maybe that's an increase in gross floor area of 500 square feet or more. Expansion? No. Via new construction.
I mean, Tony, what you're talking about is conversion of existing space. If someone were to convert 500 square feet of, I'm gonna get mixed up in all my definitions of space that was, you know, not public to their business. You're talking about conversion of space, not necessarily new construction.
Right. But how do you classify the type of floor area that you want to have a site plan review for? Most businesses will already be using their storeroom. They won't be able to just replace it and expand the business. They'd actually have to go outside of the original footprint.
That's what I think, and then you would have an addition, if I'm following you.
Yeah.
Which would already be an increase in the gross floor area.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm not sure, I'm sure new construction really does much there, but
I don't think it
I don't
does.
think it takes away either. I don't think it takes away from an understanding either. Because
But to me, the new construction is there in part to make that clarification complete, that it can be new construction, which is intuitively how one might expand space. And what we've done here is saying it includes new construction and that expansion into adjacent space. The new construction to me just helps clarify why we're talking about the expansion into other existing space. If that makes any sense.
what, tell me this. If there's a building, it's 1,000 square foot, it's a 1,000 square foot building, right? Single floor with a basement that's not necessarily used. And then and that basement would have never been part of any business calculations that we would have done. They redo their basement as part of their, their new expansion of their business. Is that an increase in the gross floor area because now they're 2 floors.
I think that would be an increase in gross floor area via the expansion into adjacent space within a existing structure.
Up or down or sideways.
Expansion of an existing principal use into adjacent space.
That's
All
where
right.
I get
Yeah,
off.
okay, I'm good.
I mean, minimally, we're gonna catch it in minor site plan
Yeah.
review.
Yeah, yes. All right, I'm sorry, I led us down that path, I think
No, that
new
was good. It
construction-
was good to stop and think about
I
that.
think new construction, I'll summarize this, I'm not sure new construction really adds anything technically, but I do think it helps for most people.
Yep.
Understanding, so I'm good with leaving it the way it is.
Okay. I'm just thinking of a retail space that converts their mezzanine attic to an office space. That's not the existing principal use nor business. And they want to rent that office, and that has happened. Is that captured? Do we want to capture that?
And it's more than 500 square feet.
Yes.
I mean, that's actually happening quite a bit as businesses look to like rent out their
Right.
extra space they have.
Does that fit at all with is that captured within the change of use definition? I mean, they're splitting the use, right? So it's not just retail, but they're moving to a different line with part of their space.
It could be,
Could
it could
consider
be.
uninhabitable to have it. Looking for a line item in the table as defined, so I don't think that would be a change of use as defined.
Well, if they're renting it out as a separate business, then it does qualify as a change of use.
Yeah, because then suddenly it's a multi-use building, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless you're gonna make them walk through the sales floor to get up to the office.
Didn't we have that situation with somebody on, I don't even remember where it was. They wanted to use another space for an office, rent it out, create more parking for that person, 4 more cars. Wasn't that behind one of those other buildings?
Well, I think it was before you were on the board, Gulf Town minimized their
No, this was
space
over this way.
and did exactly that. They put a office behind it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about, but
Yeah.
I think it happens frequently enough.
So I'm thinking this, I'm looking up at the change of use definition. That says a change in a principal or accessory use that results in its reclassification. There, it's all in front of you now. From one line to another. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, we could squeeze that into the change of an accessory use if it's an accessory space. But if this is going on a lot and we feel like we want to have this come before us, do we want to say that it's a change in a use, or somehow what I'm getting at is like a splitting of uses within the same building? Or is that just splitting hairs too much? Because the way it's phrased is you have a building and an accessory use, and it's the change of the use in that entire structure, right? But if things are being split up and so now we have multiple uses, do we want to try to capture that in the change of use definition?
Well, let me ask you a different question.
Yeah.
If they are expanding if they're changing that to 600 square feet, right? If they're changing 600 square feet, then what's their parking demand for that office space?
Right.
You're talking an existing commercial space subdividing into 2.
Yeah.
one for an office.
Yeah, right, that was like your statement before, that it was, you know, storage space or not used space. So that wouldn't have gone into their calculations for demand. Now they're converting that to office. If it's more than 600 square feet, then they need 2 parking spaces. They have 2 parking spaces worth of demand.
The retail stores, offices, and consumer service establishments have the same parking requirements under section 9. Oh wait, actually, there's 2 different office categories. Still the same count, though. One for each 300 square feet of gross floor area.
So if that was space that didn't get counted before in their calculations, then they would be they'd be adding parking demand. If they're truly converting what was retail space before into an office space.
Or unusable space that was previously unusable to office, that would also add parking.
Yeah, so I think that's covered.
So I think we're okay then.
Both of those covered, definitely.
Because ultimately, we care about the impacts. One of the things we care about is the impacts to parking, and that's covered then.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
I mean, maybe it's 550 feet they can squeeze in there, like, you know.
Which is why the threshold was set to 500 to kind of cover us.
Yeah.
Because that triggers 2.
Okay, should we close this
Public hearing?
public hearing?
Oh, are
Do you
there,
want to see if the public has comments?
Yes, I would love to hear that.
I don't know if they're here for this or not, but we have Jill and Sarah on the Zoom call.
Jill, are you there?
It looks like Jill raised her hand, so. Jill, you just need to unmute yourself, okay?
Jill, please state your name and address for the record.
Let me try to.
And you said somebody else was on Zoom?
Yeah, she chatted that she does not have anything to say about this.
Okay.
Jill is having trouble unmuting. I can't unmute her. Actually, I tried. I've asked her to unmute. Jill, if you can't unmute, you can chat me and I can read your comment out loud.
Could we also give her the phone number to call in quickly if she wants from her phone? Oh.
Let me see. She loves that idea. That must be what she's trying to say.
I don't know which idea that was.
Let me just get it real quick. Andrew, do you have it handy?
Yes, I do.
It should be in your, I don't have it in my Zoom since I'm in a different account.
Yeah.
646 518 9805.
Hey, here. That's the number, and Jill, I'm gonna put in the meeting ID. I just pasted it from the menu.
Jill also added that she is okay. Chat.
What does that mean?
She's not being held hostage.
maybe that means she doesn't have a comment? And her name is lowered. Oh, she's okay. Oh, she says, I'm okay, thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Whew. So,
Was there somebody else who was on Zoom? Julie?
yeah, and she chatted me that she does not have anything to say about this specific topic.
Okay,
All right.
so we should close the public.
So I move to close the public hearing on, where are we? On section 4.6 site plan review.
I'll
Second.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good. That discussion's closed.
Now I think you need to recommend to town meeting something.
Yeah.
We should now recommend this to go to town meeting warrant.
Is that the process, Julie? I think.
You can do it now, or you can do it at some point in the lead up to town meeting. Either way is fine.
Do we,
I'd still like to see it.
yeah, I guess,
Should we see the final and then vote to move, to send it to town meeting?
that's what I was thinking, Heather.
The cleaned
Yeah,
up version?
yeah.
Yep.
And I guess when does the town council look at it too? Do we wait for that, or do we or do we move along and then they look at it after?
I mean, I'll send it to them tomorrow.
All right.
Get the ball rolling.
That's fine.
So, and yeah, like once I get the final from them, we have a bunch more, let's see, we have 3 more meetings before town meeting. So should be fine, do it at any of them.
Okay.
We vote to recommend it at town meeting and we're all set.
That's fine. Okay. One more look-see and then we can pass along to you. Any comments, questions, or tightening up of language that we need? Is that okay? Julie?
I don't know if the language can change,
Well,
like in a substantive way. Hopefully it won't need to, but we'll see. We can cross that bridge when we come to it.
and we can make a friendly amendment to change whatever language we want at town meeting.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Okay. So that closes discussion. We have a motion to close discussion on these issues for site plan review.
I don't think we did. We could close the public hearing, so I think we're all set.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we have next item on the agenda at this late hour is zoning workshop debrief and potential community meetings.
So I have a document I put together. Finally, we're debriefed from March 29th, and it's 10:20 p.m. This is how it goes. So I appreciate you're all willing to have an additional meeting this month, so we could do this. Can you see the document on your screen?
Yes.
Okay, so basically, actually, let me just. So basically, Andrew and I went through the Google Jamboards from the workshop, kind of summarized the feedback that we got from those Jamboards, and also the notes we took about the opening part of the forum, which was like, you know, what do you envision downtown Reading to be like in 20 years? So I just kind of grouped some of the feedback we got in the initial phase of the meeting together into some categories here. We got a lot of positive comments, so that was intended, right? Start positively. I love the one about best places to live never have enough parking. That's like maybe my favorite one. But there were just a lot of things about what people like to see downtown, different types of the character, different businesses, different entertainment options. Very similar feedback to what we've gotten when we've done, like, we did our Reimagine Reading survey 2 years ago, and we got like 1,500 responses about downtown. We did a downtown parking survey. We get a lot of the same feedback, which is good, right? We're hearing the same things. We kind of have a course of action for the future. And then jumping into like the meat, I guess, of the night was, when we did the breakout sessions and the different focus groups. So just really quick, we started out by what were the questions that were asked in each focus group, and what feedback do we get, related to each question, and then and that's all the text that's in black, and then I put in red with the arrows, like what that leads me to believe we should do, right? So whether education is needed, whether it might fit nicely into something we can change in the zoning bylaw or the design guidelines. Just trying to take what we heard and figure out some real actionable things we can do with that feedback. So Nick's not here, and I don't know who else was in the lot coverage group. I think maybe it might have been Linda.
Was Linda?
Here either, but there was, I guess, comments about why the board lets certain lot coverages happen. I don't think we actually have 100% lot coverage in any of the buildings downtown. So clearly, to me, that makes me think we need to give more education, give a little more background information about when a building is constructed and it has mostly zero setbacks, what that actually means in terms of lot coverage. And then again, lot coverage, the way we have it defined, is only includes buildings, so it doesn't include all the pavement, right? So that's something we probably want to look at. And then a sense that developers see the advantage of staff and the Cpdc through the waiver process. That was a comment that was made. So education about how the waiver process works and what it's really meant to incentivize, and why we have it, what we'd expect the results of it to be. And then Andrew and I also had some ideas about ways we might modify the different justifications we have in 40R. There's I think 5 criteria now that you can use when you evaluate projects to justify different waivers. And we have some ideas about how we might adjust those. We can talk about all that stuff at another time or later tonight or whatever. And then some comments here I kind of tried to group together. These were really lot coverage specific comments, in a sense of how we can fix them, what is meant by it, a suggestion for 25-foot setbacks without increased height, that's not, I'm not sure, feasible suggestion, but maybe. And so just again here, education about lot coverage, how the different dimensional requirements work together, and then the competing priorities on the site. And like I mentioned, maybe redefining lot coverage to better identify, basically it's in tandem with a definition of open space, what is it that we need with both of those things. And that can happen both in the zoning and in the design guidelines. And then the third question was, are there other ways to achieve this goal? And the goal was, I didn't state the second question, but what is the ultimate goal of reducing lot coverage? Are there other ways to achieve this goal? Right, and so, again, there were some comments about the waiver process and why some sites might warrant additional height in exchange for bigger setbacks, and some sites it might be trickier, kind of just educating about why we have the flexibility built into zoning. And then the comments about Lexington's wide sidewalks. And again, if we wanted to find open space and include allowing wider sidewalks as part of that definition, we might be able to achieve a similar thing that this person had envisioned. Another really interesting idea that came out of this, which I know Nick had specifically mentioned when he gave the recap, was the idea that we would have step backs at the ground level versus maybe at the second floor or the fourth floor of the building, to carve out some openings at the streetscape. I thought that was a really good suggestion, interesting idea. So something we can totally look at. And a comment here that I didn't understand, so Nick and Linda aren't with us, but maybe somebody else can glean what was meant by this comment.
My only comment on that was, I thought people were saying, well, other buildings, say MF Charles, have 0 setbacks and cover the entire lot. There's no reason why just because an old building has it, you have to allow new buildings to have it as well.
That would be my interpretation as well, just based on, I guess. Yeah, that would be my interpretation, but it's just a guess.
And I know we have Sarah Bublacki with us, and I don't know, Sarah, which focus group were you part of? Do you remember? Not to call you out. I don't know if she could.
I didn't, that was the night I was helping my daughter move in, and so I hopped in at the very end.
Okay.
So, but I mean, we've done a couple of these workshops over the years. I know we did some right at the very beginning. There were 2 at the senior center, so, I mean, they're familiar topics.
So yeah, feel free to chime in if you have any additional input or clarification to provide.
I thought that last comment pertained more to existing buildings, meaning like some of the existing 40R, like for instance, Gould Street. You know, like that was what I sort of remembered that conversation. But you know, I guess maybe we'd have to go back and watch it because I wasn't there till the end. So
that's helpful. Okay, and then getting on to the open space focus group, and Heather and Andrew, right? You were doing that one. Mm-hmm. So I highlighted some of the keywords in this, in bold here, but what constrains creation of open space? So, those are competing priorities, parking and open space oftentimes. Just the need to be able to privatize, the privatization of those spaces makes them feel like they're not public. Maintenance, abutting uses, are maybe not favorable or inviting, and then we don't have good language in our design guidelines to talk about open space, what it is we really mean, and then equitability and access. So, you know, something we can do is look at stronger language and parameters for open space, both in zoning and the design guidelines. Talk about materials, responsibility for maintenance, ways to formalize and encourage public access, where to locate them in coordination with abutting uses, right? We kind of talked about that at the workshop a little bit. And, you know, like where those open spaces are located, like do they need to always be publicly accessible, or can they sometimes be private terraces like we have at Gould Street? So, you know, what is the community really looking for? Question 2, how do we envision open spaces being used? Lots of different ideas. Again, that can go right into the definition of open space. Question 3, creative ways to achieve the vision at the lot level or collectively beyond the lot, right? So there's a lot of ideas here that are really valuable. So again, it gets at that same idea of just really specifying the language and parameters. And then moving on to parking. Question 1, should we eliminate or modify the commercial exemption? What are the implications? There was a general sentiment that we might not want to get rid of the exemption right now. There's the Parking Advisory and Recommendations Committee. They have their second meeting tomorrow night. We're gonna work hard to try to figure out how to manage the downtown parking system better. We might wait and see how that plays out. Understand what our real, like how the supply and demand can be better aligned, what our real parking demand is. And instead of just automatically forcing the burden back onto every site. And then also looking at long-term solutions, right? Not just the downtown regulations, the day-to-day downtown regulations, but also longer-term solutions. And there's a lot of different ideas for that Park is talking about. And then again, like, there's a lot of parking is complicated, you know, you could, and the parking demand and zoning is like just a number, right? You could have a retail use that's not popular and doesn't need a lot of parking and goes out of business, and then it gets replaced with a retail use that ostensibly in zoning requires the same amount, but it's super popular and has a lot of demand, and you know, so it's just, it can be really hard to predict, especially when developers come in and don't know like who their retailer is going to be right up front. But so use matters. Comment about stores having no control over where their patrons park. Hopefully we can try to work on that and influence user behavior with some changes to the downtown regulations. And like maybe a little more education again. So I think the general sense of parking was that it might make sense to wait pandemic to end and better assess demand, utilization, and wait for park to kind of see if there's some new regulations or some different way to kind of restructure the regulatory framework downtown to change user behavior, and maybe it will then do the parking evaluation, utilization study, and see if we're achieving our goals with that. And if we have more parking than we think. So that's the general overview. Did I have more? Oh, I do. Never mind, I'm not done yet.
Well, Julie, can we stop for a second?
Sure.
I noticed one of the statements was that the Brand Court lot seems to be used less now than when Atlantic had it. Except that's not what we just heard last week when discussing the Chute Street development, that people couldn't find spaces in the Brand Court to park.
It's a much different rotation, right? Atlantic, there was, you know, the turnover was, you know, hourly,
right,
or every 2 hours, and now if it is full, right, it's people that are parking there for you know,
a day.
A day, yeah. Or 8 hours, right?
Yeah.
Because there's not many people there at night. Lots generally empty at night, so it's all daytime use. So yeah, and I think that's really right. It like Julie said, use matters. There was more demand with Atlantic there because there was more turnover.
Yeah.
Serving more people.
You could get a spot if you waited 5 minutes and circled the lot. Now, if you wait 5 minutes, it's hours before somebody moves.
That's it, as it's reported.
Okay. Sorry, please continue.
No worries. And so then on the last page, I kind of just put some takeaways and ideas in one place. So part of the reason that discussing this tonight is important is because I mentioned this, I think, 1 or 2 other times, but planning and economic development staff are have a contract with MAPC to help us with some additional outreach and community engagement around the 40R district and potential changes. And we're going to work with them on a community survey and a focus group actually of some of the people who've expressed concerns to try to just understand the concerns in a little bit more depth, and also have MAPC housing and outreach experts kind of help us, or just to have another set of ears, like listening to what the concerns are, and then maybe help us frame things up and to understand if the concerns we're hearing from some of the people in town, if there's broader, are we hearing from just a few people, or is that really like what the community, the bigger community feels? So we have those lined up for October and November, most likely. We're looking at working on the survey and the focus groups in September. With the time frame, the hope for a time frame of getting something to April town meeting, that's still the time frame that we're hoping for. And so Andrew and I have already started looking at the zoning and actually working some of these ideas into the zoning, so we can like take the conversation we had in March and this great feedback we got and advance it, right? Not like we're going back to square one and getting the same community feedback again, but trying to advance the conversation with these next couple community meetings that we'll have, and put some real ideas out there for people to digest and talk about. And with that in mind, we've also reached out to DHCD because they're a critical part of this process. They're understaffed and overwhelmed. They're actually supposed to update their own 40R regulations this year based on the housing choice legislation that the governor signed, I think maybe in January, although, yeah, in January. So it took them a long time to get back to us. They finally did. So we're in a dialogue with them about what their, if they have, like, what I really want to know is if they have parameters and kind of upper limits and lower limits on like what kinds of dimensional changes or things are acceptable and not considered unreasonably impairing development, so we know what we're working within. They were like, that's a really good idea. We should have that. I was like, so that's, anyway, we're having a dialogue and we want to make sure that whatever we're talking about here in Reading is something that the state can ultimately approve, so that this isn't all this doesn't just go nowhere. So there's a lot of moving parts, but I guess I just wanted to give you that little background information about what we have planned for the fall so that you know like what we're thinking and why we're doing this and why it's important we had this meeting tonight and actually had this on the agenda tonight to talk about. And I think I should stop talking.
No, I think that was really very helpful, Julie, for you to go through, summarize, and then talk about what the plans are in the future for acting on some of these issues, or at least clarifying them with the general public.
Right, so the areas where I mentioned like education needed, I'm more thinking about like when we have these next meetings, like in order to advance the conversation, we might want to talk a little bit more in depth about some of these things that we say, like a little more education might help inform the conversation and help move it along, right? So it's not like a statement that education is needed that's going to go nowhere. It's like really with a purpose in mind. And then ideas for the zoning bylaw, like I mentioned, Andrew and I have already started like looking into how things could work. Some ideas we had, if you want to just take a minute and look at them if you haven't already, we can talk about them.
Julie, are you incorporating that instructional motion into these zoning bylaws changes?
I mean, yeah, we certainly can. I do think that, and I think I've said this before, I'm not sure that just saying 85% lot coverage actually gets what the community wants, given the way we currently define lot coverage, and that some of the buildings that have been built recently are actually less than 85%. So I think that it's important to look at the bylaw really holistically and also understand how the lot coverage works with the height, works with the competing demands for parking, open space, density, our parcels are relatively small. So I think what we're trying to do here is a more holistic review of section 10.5.
I was speaking to the instructional motion that I made at the end of town meeting about giving residential properties a residential setback, even though they're not in a residential zone.
Right, yeah, that other piece, we're looking at that's in here. Yeah.
But because you just started talking about 85%, I don't know where that number came from. I don't
That was
see
the number you proposed in your instructional motion, in addition to the changes to the residential setback.
Oh,
I actually think that may have even been a separate instructional motion. That was,
There's,
yeah.
it was in both. I believe that one was in both.
okay.
Yeah.
So where is that? Where is it about the residential properties?
Well, so I have the zoning. I can put it on the screen if that's what the Cpdc wants to do, to like really delve in, or if they want to just talk about the debrief. I leave it up to them.
I'm going to go back to some of your overview, Julie, because and sort of your next steps, and I think this will get to the point that got brought up about setbacks. When I look through these comments that came out of both the lot coverage focus group and the open space focus group, there's certainly, this is definitely was a self-selecting group, right? And so not necessarily representative, but, the comments that were discussed was about, I guess the ideas were pretty wide-ranging in terms of what people are looking for in terms of open space. And some things that were maybe applicable to downtown, and some that connections, like the comment about connections to Birch Meadow and Lake Quantapowhat, really speak more to the town in general. And I guess after looking at this, my suggestion or guidance, if you will, is that I think that's where we could use help from from MAPC or their consultant, is to help understand how open space might work within the footprint, the footprint of downtown. It's a small area, and sort of brainstorming or visioning how, what people have in their mind and how that may work. And then we could take that vision and turn it into zoning, so that, because zoning may be one way to get there, and there may be other ways to get there. But right now, we don't necessarily know where we're going, or what that vision is. We did that same sort of thing with South Main Street design guidelines a long time ago, and looked at ways to, this is even going back to before the setback was changed from 50 feet to whatever it is now. But the idea was, could we get connections between different parcels? And Tony, I don't know if you were sort of, I'm going to say, involved in the audience or what at that time, but we went parcel by parcel. Nick did a lot of work. George did a lot of work. George Katsufis. Yeah. So, and we looked at, like, how could we actually get those connections made between different parcels. And it was very instructive on how we could actually, or how feasible it was in different parts of South Main Street to develop a sort of a parking back behind or connections in between the parcels. And I think that downtown is that small that that we could do the same sort of thing about how do we make pathways, how do we make those open space connections that people are looking for? Where are those opportunities for that open space that people are looking for in terms of, you know, whatever is listed here? And so we could move from there. Because I'm not sure that delving into the setbacks and that sort of stuff will get us where I think people want to go. I'll leave it at that. Does that make sense, Julie? Do you know?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. That's great. We can, and if there's any other ideas that you want to have for things we can ask MAPC to help us really understand better and envision better, please let me know.
And I'm sorry that I didn't make that connection that I wanted to. Why that also plays with, you know, setbacks from residential properties is because, you know, if the setbacks are increased, right? The zone is so small, right? That if we push if we increase the setback to residential properties, or properties that are currently used as residences, if we increase that, then things will move even closer to the street or move even further out, and then people will start putting parking in the back because it won't be open. We don't have enough space for it to just be open. So then that becomes parking, and then that even takes more availability for green open space instead of parking open space because there's therefore more on-site circulation. So we end up with even more hardscape by pushing buildings forward and having that. And I'm not sure that's really, I'm not sure that is beneficial to anyone. So I think we do need to sort of work out this, where is this green space that's truly, you know, I'm going to get away from the open space term, but where is the green space going to go that's helpful to everyone? You know, I think we need to map that out before we start trying to push any development, squeeze it around.
I'll just chime in to say I agree with you. I think about just even in my own mind's eye, and even one of the visuals that was worked up for the workshop that we had many months ago, it was really useful, and it does show, I agree that the area is small enough that having a visioning workshop of where are the places to I get worried that in talking about what percentage of a property should be green space, we'll end up with like a corner that's a bench here, a corner that's a bench there, instead of actual connectivity that we might be seeking. So I guess I'm just piling on, John, with what you're saying of going through this process. I would love to use MAPC's expertise to work through with folks where it's important places to connect, and then we think about how do we do that, and what part of that solution is the zoning, and what part of that solution is, you know, the other planning that goes on and visioning that goes on.
Agreed.
Yep.
If I can speak again, I think it sounds like a lot of speculation about what may or may not happen if you require a setback, but you still have to come back to when these 40R bylaws were approved. I don't think that the town meeting members were aware that people who had residences were not going to be afforded residential setbacks, because, you know, I'm on town meeting, everybody I talk to And when you play back the videos, there were a lot of questions, you know, to that effect, like, do these people understand? And it's not like it is that many properties. And I really feel that the town needs to do right to the people that have these. You know, these are old homes. This is sort of like this is where, you know, Reading began. And the very least that can be done is to fix that, to give those people a decent 10-foot minimum setback from these mammoth buildings. It's looking strange already, and there's bigger projects coming in, and it increases division in the downtown area, which is what nobody wants. You know, it's not helpful. So the town really needs to make that wrong right. You know, I can't say that enough. I mean, I think from the workshop, there were three things that stood out. One is the massing. The other one is there's no parks or green space. And then the third one is parking. So, and I hear what Heather's saying. It's like, for instance, on the Chute Street project, you get a little corner with a bench. Well, I don't know how you can work that at, you know, August 2021 while these projects are going on and say, you work with this guy over here who's starting to do a project and that guy up the street, and let's all figure out a contiguous, you know, green strip where you're having to do this all on private property. It's not really town property. These are, you know, private parcels that are being developed. You know,
I think what
I
you're,
feel like
what
by
you're,
the time this all gets worked out, it'll be too late.
what
Yeah,
you're,
and I guess part of what's on my mind, and I'll be explicit about that, is it in these you know, the next series, if we have focus groups or the next series of public discussions, really looking at those properties. I mean, that area where there's a mix of residential, it's physically tight in there. So taking a look at what are the options? What happens? And just what happens if you do a 10-foot setback? Where does that push the rest of the building? And what are other options? I guess I'm open to it. I'm open to it all in order to get it right down in that area in particular.
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well, I guess I'm just saying, I mean, I'm interested in the visioning exercise that looks at connectivity, looks at the different, I guess what I'm saying is looks at the different portions of the 40R. Where are the areas where, I'm sorry, it's late, where not only can you get open space and connectivity, but I am also open to actually looking at, with a group of people, what does it start to actually look like if you move to 10-foot setbacks next to residential areas? Is that actually getting to what people ultimately want, which is probably a little bit of,
space, breathing space.
Probably a little bit of breathing room while these big developments are going on, right?
Right, because you can't even have a tree canopy in 10 feet. You know, I mean, along the back of Gould, we lost 13 trees, but, you know, how can you replace those trees? You really can't, you know?
but Sarah,
so the tree canopy's gone.
that's exactly the point, is
Yeah.
what do you get for that 10 feet? And is there, are you, by doing that 10 feet, are you just gonna get parking along that? Are you gonna get some other meaningful space? And that's what we wanna make sure, that we're not just knee-jerk reacting to, you know, let's increase the setback by, you know, 10 or 15 feet, and then you
need
get
to define
nothing,
that
you get
space.
nothing for it, right? You
Right,
get-
what's the meaningful space that we want? If we want tree canopies, where in that block of 40R do we want to be sure we have tree canopies, and what does it take to do that?
Right.
To clarify though, these residential properties aren't sitting on their property line. So what I'm saying is, if the abutting property, you know, is going to give them zero space or a tiny sliver of space, it makes it very difficult. Then they have to have, you know, the trees taking up their entire yard. It's just, it can be done. when we had the workshop, I think the consensus was wanting 70%. I think when, Julie, when you did those markups where you showed different examples, you know, nobody wants the massing. It's not, it's really permanently damaging the way the downtown is gonna feel. It's gonna be hot, you know, there's not gonna be enough airflow, there's shadowing. I mean, I really think, you know, that I watched the whole video of the part that I missed, and I mean, pretty much the people that participated, they were all concerned about the massing. They were concerned about the height. They were concerned about how hot it was when you walk around downtown. I mean, you know, we get all this information. I don't know what the next step is. I don't think there's a lot of understanding. I think it's more like addressing. We need to address these things.
That's
You know.
exactly what we're talking about, is addressing these things in a way that gets us the results that people want, right? We heard what was said about, you know, green space. It's not open space, green space, about, you know, some softening. We need to come up with a way that actually leads to those results. And so really that's what we're trying to do, is make sure that, you know, that we get there, and that we don't just create some change in zoning that changes really very little.
Results.
Yeah, that gives us, no results at all, so.
Well, I know it's late, but you guys, you have so much, you've got a lot to do, and I don't know how you keep up your stamina. These long meetings. The one thing that I sent an email to Julie, because last week I didn't know how to raise my hand or something, but I wondered about the application when they submit, and it has that they submit where it says, did you read the design guidelines about X, Y, and Z? And they were just checking a box, yes. And I thought that there would be value to having a line underneath it that says, you know, in what capacity or how so? Because when I looked through the plans, I didn't see yes, 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 yes. You know, so it would be, I think, important to see how are they incorporating the design guidelines truly. And, you know, it would be nice if the first pass was actually closer to what the design guidelines and the people in the town want. It wouldn't take so many passes.
I think you would have resounding agreement with this board if the first pass on these developments were closer to what we want.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
it's not.
So thank you.
Then we wouldn't have all of these midnight meetings. So yes, we agree.
But it's very helpful to have your input, Sarah, on these issues. So we hope that you continue to participate and speak out, because it is essential that we hear from the abutters, the developers, and the disgruntled among us in the process of getting to good design and good use of properties. So we do appreciate it.
Thanks, Pam.
No problem.
All right, it's late.
Okay, that being said, should we close the discussion on zoning workshop? Do we have a motion to close?
I don't think we need a motion to
No.
close.
Right. Okay, so what's the next step then, Julie?
Did anyone else have anything else to add? You guys generally like what I mentioned as our process. Are there any other things we should try to have NPC focus on?
Well, I will go back to my comment from last week that we can start requesting some of this from developers. If they want to put in 4 times as many units as allowed, I don't see the problem saying, okay, well, I want a little bit of green space on there.
So we do currently have as one of your criteria for approving waivers, the inclusion of open space. It is listed in there. There's no real necessarily like link between which justifications for waivers go with which dimensional and design things, but we could try to strengthen that in the bylaw going forward.
Okay.
One thing we talked about today, just quickly, was one of the 5 justifications for waivers that's listed is just simply proposing a mixed-use building. We might want to think about that.
Say that again?
So one of in the zoning bylaw, without getting into too much detail, there are 5 things the CPDC can use to justify when an applicant requests waivers. Just off the top of my head, it's like preservation of a historic structure, provision of open space, a mixed-use building, just proposing a mixed-use building.
I saw your comment on that earlier today, Julie. I think you also need to remember, though, that part of 40R that is allowed is 100% residential development. So.
Right, that's right.
You know, so, and we, right, especially at the time, and we still don't know how many, how much only residential development would we get. Having that provides, if more people come in with only residential developments and we start losing commercial square footage, we would be, I think, at least I would be less likely to grant any waiver, right? Because we don't want downtown becoming all residential.
Right, I guess I just wanted to talk about it in the context of like the mixed-use building also gets more height, right? So like are the mixed-use buildings happening because they get more height, or because they can check the box that they can get waivers? Right, like
Yeah.
make sure that our waivers incentivize the things the way we want them to.
Yeah.
Right, that's all.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong right now, but we don't have to grant a waiver of unlimited proportions. So if the waiver is the height, you can go over 45 feet, we don't have to allow 300 feet. We can allow 46 or 50. We can limit how much of a waiver we grant.
Yes, and we have done that, right? We've pushed back quite a bit.
No, take off that 4th floor. Yeah, we've done that.
But I think a lot of the mixed use we're getting right now, because the business portion is so tiny comparatively speaking to everything else, is I think it's checking the box.
Yeah.
Along with the statement of, we're going to use green building. I don't think we've had a real green building come in. There's been nothing with heat pumps, no solar.
Yeah.
They're using new and improved green construction methods, but I don't think that gets us where we really wanted to be for there.
I agree.
Right, yeah, so I think we're in agreement. I think we need to discuss our waivers as part of this.
Yeah.
So. Great. Is there anything else you guys wanted to talk about?
I just want to say thank you. It's only because I care so much about the downtown area that I listen in, and sometimes I get a little bit feisty, but I appreciate everything you're doing, and I'm all in for Reading.
Well, thank you for staying up so late with us to hash through it, even though we aren't nearly all the way through it.
Thank you, Sarah, we appreciate it.
Yeah, all right, good night.
Good night. Okay, on to the next item.
Would that be a motion to adjourn? Or do we have?
We have minutes.
There's one set of the June 7th minutes, but they were added late today, so you guys didn't get a chance to review. Okay, if you would like to review, it's also.
That is the prerogative of the chair. If the chair would like to adjourn, there can be a motion to adjourn.
Can we entertain a motion to adjourn?
We could, motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Aye.
All in
Aye.
favor? Aye.
Fastest
Thank you.
second in the West.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, bye.
Thank you guys.
Good night.